Hello, Collegiate Esports fans, and welcome to the EGF Overwatch broadcast for this evening. It's going to be Tiny Shiny and Twin Salty walking you through today's matchups. And you know, Twin Salty, we're heading into this as week 14 of the regular season. We're so close to the end, and we got two teams here looking to finish strong.
Two teams desperately needing these last few games to go their way. Delaware 11-1, trying to fight for that #1 overall seed. Obviously, conference championships a factor in how we get to the overall playoffs, but wanting to finish it out strong. RIT 8-5, as you said. You know, when we're in the green room, 5-game winning streak here for the Tigers.
Yeah.
So definitely hitting the straight at a right time, trying to go up that leaderboard.
Certainly on a hot streak, but not to mention, though, University of Delaware, they've dropped one match the entire season, and that was way back in week number 4, if I'm not mistaken, against William and Mary. They've actually ended up beating the #1 team at the current time, so they're a force to be reckoned with, and it's going to be Rochester. Are they going to be the ones to continue that hot streak forwards through this series? And that is what we are going to find out as we get to see where these battles are going to be taking place.
Yeah, looking at the map pool for but for now, going over to Oasis Knight to begin us off here. Going to Gardens first in Delaware. Looking to run that Rhine Rush that we've seen a lot of as of late. RIT at least teasing the Doomfist so far.
I mean, I want to see some Doomfist. Doomfist is certainly different from what we're used to, and even has been appearing in some professional scrims as well, so it could totally be a viable pick, but to come down to the last 3 seconds for those decisions to be made, and we'll actually get to see what's rolling out. And it looks like they're going to stick with that Doom.
Yeah, we'll stick to it right away. Delaware, just take the TP out of spawn so they can try and take control over a high ground straight away.
Yeah, we're going to see the battle up at the top. Minky's going to do their best to try to dislodge these players, and get nades straight off the map. Great play to open it up. And it just opens the door wide open for you, Delaware. Really go back straight to the spawns. Rochester got control early here.
Beautiful first fight, and as soon as they get that environmental, it is the go button the Tigers need, as the Cassidy is going to be a very big counter to what they're trying to do. With that magnetic grenade, it can try and deny the dive coming in from Minky or Foliage. Oh, getting them off early just sets off the Blue Hens, and going down early for maybe one of the first times as of late.
And University of Delaware, they're finding themselves on the back foot. New situation for them, but they're going to look to change it around now. They want to collapse on anybody, but their only option is really Minky. And look how much damage Ideal Warrior takes. Will eventually fall as a result. Minky is still kind of alive. You're walking around. The Rush Cop can't do too much, but it's on the objective contesting for the time being, but without a tank. They don't have to sustain. Losing nades probably going to mean the end of this as everyone else is trickling out.
For us, hitting the shots, able to get a nice little 2-piece, and they'll actually have the first ultimate available here for RIT with this Deadeye pod. Has the pulse bomb, and nobody else for the Blue Hens, even getting close to their ultimates just because of how spaced out RIT have played. This rush comp has not been able to run down anybody from the Tigers.
No, they haven't found that target just yet. I mean, you got the pulse bomb to open it up, so maybe that could be something that you could work off of. Minky's not letting them get anywhere too far fast. Meteor strike in the close quarters. Everyone's kind of trapped. University of Delaware, they are up 1 elimination. Don't have to worry about a Tracer poking at their backs, but they're just cornered. Eventually, they're going to break their way out. But Minky can just back out. It's the Deadeye zoning everybody behind the post. You can see them. They're not willing to peek. Great kite there, but the point still in control of Rochester. The Tigers, they're close to locking this one down. They need one fight win. They have the support holds up to be able to do this after the Kitsune rush to put it out. A big difference maker if you can find who to collapse on. It was almost a Lucio, but Hyper got that sound barrier off in the nick of time. Will be mirrored by Storm's Eye. Keep everybody up. A big neutral game. Eventually, those Cassidys will be traded out. But Rochester, because they're in control, this is going so well for them, Twin Salty. All they need to do is sustain, and they are doing it. They have the numbers in their favor, really only that Earth Shatter to look back upon. There it is. It goes on to absolutely nobody, and that just might be about it. Delaware, they've got a couple last daggers coming in, but Rochester, they're coordinated. They are target calling, and that is going to be a 100-0 round if these players can't get cleaned up.
What a shock. Our first round of RT can close it out. It seems like right now they should be able to. Delaware, no ultimates in the bank. They tried to use everything during that last fight. And even though these staggers are going through, it's up to Ideal Warrior and Pod to at least make something out of this. But the longer this goes on, the longer it seems like RIT have pulled the rug underneath them, at least for round 1. Yeah, and there we go.
Yeah.
Delaware 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Not the start we would think of for the number 2 team in the conference.
Oh, absolutely not. Looking at the numbers alone, this is a game that you expected Delaware to come out pretty confident in, but they're not off to a great start. I mean, they just threw everything they could at that last point, and I think heading to City Center, the swaps that we're seeing at this point, definitely warranted.
Oh, extremely warranted. Especially with it being City Center, the rush itself, like, even if it did work over there on Gardens, will not work here. It's so spaced out. High ground is such a big factor. So they'll be running that overall dive. Pod, I assume, will be swapping back to that Tracer once they get the TP out. And I want to see how RIT try and counter this now, because it worked great against the rush, what they were running, but will they be able to keep their backline safe from the Delaware dive?
And I think that's the same question that Delaware are asking. Can they keep their own backline safe?
Yeah.
At Rochester, they did an amazing job of just collapsing on that in the background. And City Center is much more open map, too. So you'll see players kind of off in the high ground, like the Tigers are now, and just taking shots down on Juno. That's what we're talking about. Those backlines so incredibly vulnerable. Both supports out of the way. Delaware, once again, are having a rough time getting things started, as the Tigers are just a beast to be handled.
This is just so weird, but RIT are just playing it so perfectly. Always finding somebody in the back. A lot of the time, you know, it's been either Juno or Nate. More Nate when they were on the Cassidy, but even this time around, able to get staggered out fully. Is able to hunt him down with the help of Storm's Eye. And RIT claim point first yet again. And already almost on that pulse bomb with no honest answer to try and save anybody if they're stuck.
No, and Delaware, they haven't found that target to quite collapse on yet. They're kind of just hoping to get somebody low and then finish them off, but the Tigers, they got a plan. They're looking for that Zenyatta, or looking for Hyper to be able to catch them out on the backline. You can see that the Wrecking Ball had to go back to help protect them. At the time being, they're being harassed by Foliage and Minky on the side. Hyper aggressive shield bash in just to keep them up, but that like John O'Veerable gets a ride on a car, still alive. We're having claiming some dangerous territory over here. Eventually, Juno will go down. We're being sprayed out for Frost. And Delaware, they're finally getting those eliminations in the kill feed. Needed to push them through. Still looking to close it out. They're not in control of the point just yet. This point is notorious for the amount of stalls. But eventually, Delaware will end that drought and get some percentage.
I like the Sombra pick. It's taking a little bit of time for it to fully sink in, but they're able to midify. What Minky's been able to do is Foliage as well. They've been trying to shut down both of them as Frost. They've been getting a lot of poke shots, not a lot of these finishing blows, but at that point, Delaware's like, hey, we're just going to ignore the Doomfist even exists, right? Try and focus on the back line. Don't worry about the Doomfist. You obviously have to, like, avoid them trying to push you into the road, but you don't got to try and kill them first.
Exactly, and the AMP is going to provide a lot more. But that focus fire on the squishies, look at that. There goes Frost, and a lot on the Squomo, too. And great EMP. Sombra certainly took a lot of time to get set up, and now that it's there, it'll be working just perfectly. Quick fights like that could be great for Delaware.
Extremely nice for Delaware. Already even now with the Tigers on percentage. We'll jump them by the time this next fight begins. And them only having to use the one ult that fight is very big, so they can try and, you know, stall this out a little bit. Start with Pulse Bomb here. You can use the Transcendence if needed, but you can try and stagger out your ultimates just a little bit more.
You got the time to. Rochester, they don't need to use everything here. It's certainly the same for Delaware. A lot of pressure on where these guys are going. The Pulse Bomb at Suzu is going to be there to negate it. You got to be baiting out the cooldowns. Same as that goes. So we're in kind of a neutral game. Somebody waiting for something to happen. And Rochester, they're going to make their move now, knowing that time is running low. Have several things to work with. It's going to be the Deadeye to start it off. Gets Nate down. Ideal Warrior. Mind Pill. Desperate attempt to get away just to be healed up enough so they can roll through at some other points. Rochester, their patience has paid off. They're coming up with these eliminations, and the pressure's on the back line now. Might be losing time, but they're looking pretty strong to take this one back into their favor.
And they keep both support ultimates as well, but at least 99% here for Delaware. Because of how long that fight took, they're able to almost get 50% off of one fight. I don't think you're going to hear the Blue Hens complain whatsoever about it. So now both support ults for both teams. Foliage does have that Pulse Bomb ready to go. We'll try and force out that Transcendence if they can early, but I want to see this rally used aggressively. Don't try and use it to counter out RT push. Try and get aggressive and get in their face.
They have to make the first move here, right? Walking into both a sound barrier and a Kitsune Rush. You gotta force those out at a time that isn't convenient for your opponents, but you don't even have the Zenyatta to work with now. Time is running low. Not too much to be done, so it's the Rally and Kitsune, one on either side. You try to keep this one going, keep that gas pumping in. Everyone's getting beaten up by Minky in the backside, doing their best. The accelerated cooldowns working out excellently. But Delaware, they're able to back off, to sustain themselves, get the Zenyatta back, get the EMP off. And here we are. They have the eliminations, not the point control yet, but certainly closer than our last round. And overtime will hit. And Delaware are looking for that control. The sound barrier was unleashed, but it only hit the Storm's Eye, who will fall. And Delaware, they're going to get that flip. Players looking to get the touch in. Pulse bomb, nice stick on a Minky was the meteor strike to escape, but nobody is there to touch the point. And Rochester, they're gonna have to finish this one out in round number 3.
And this is where we could see the Rhine come back out here for Delaware over on University. It is one of the best Rhine maps of the the entire game. So already Delaware getting ready for those swaps. Juno over to that Baptiste. It seems like RIT, they're gonna match. They know the Doomfist won't work against it. Hey, I respect it, knowing that Delaware, there's a pretty decent chance they're going to run some sort of rush. Even though they're teasing the Orisa, because I bet they believe RIT is gonna try and run another dive, when in reality, they're just gonna try and go the Rhine.
It's a very interesting thought process. Both of these teams are trying to read the other and attempt to have an advantage here off the fight, but we ended up with two kind of mismatched comps, the Reinhardt versus the Orisa. Orisa's gonna have more of this range, this poke damage, but it's gonna be a little bit weaker once things get up close and personal. And Minky has the ability to close the gap. Maze on both sides, so cautions will be taken from these teams. So the point hasn't seen too much. It'll be a nice wall off onto Minky. Immortality Field leaped over, but so low the tank is and will be taken care of, as Delaware will get themselves that first cap for the first time all game.
Hey, you go 1 for 3, but hey, you at least get it on the round that will matter the most. As you said, they want to play that long-range game, especially with Juno on this Kiriko as well. They don't have as much group healing as RIT, with Skomo, having that regen burst, as well as, the nades hitting everyone in that area when Juno can only really heal one person at a time.
And I think it's where we're going to see the major differences once these fights start to get a little bit brawlier. That's where Rochester are going to have that advantage. If they go longer than that, eventually the resources will run dry. Another Maywall won't catch anybody out this time around. So we played a bit of ring around the rosy, I think. We're going all the way up to the high ground, getting a little dizzy off here. But hey, ideally Warriors happy to sit back and just poke. You don't even need to do anything. Wait for the Reinhardt to come down to you. And that's the speed boost forwards, the aggression. Reinhardt and Lucia are caught out. Ideal Warriors to fortify, to stay up and healthy. And in the meantime, University of Delaware, they lose that tank player, and along with Nate, meaning that they were likely not going to be able to finish the one out. The ultimates they have built up, though, to come back in next fight.
I like the aggression there from RT, but the patience as well. As soon as the wall goes down, we're not going to wait for it. Let's just rotate all the way on high ground, gives Frost better sight lines to try and set up the rest of that fight, and eventually able to go their way. Ant Matrix online now for Skomo to try and be aggressive and deny this main choke and force a rotate.
You gotta look for the points. That's Kitsune Rush, the one differential between these two teams. So support ult, blocking off that main choke area, forcing many more abilities to be seen, and Pod will go down as a result. Ant Matrix playing off much better in Rochester's favor, and they're gonna go ahead and hold on to this, but a heavy investment from Delaware means that one's gonna hurt a little bit.
It's a decent fight there for Delaware, but the Blizzard just doesn't get anything, because at that point, you put the wall down to that Ant Matrix, but all that value is still there when the wall goes down, and they're just able to pick up the kills. Now, RIT can play with a Blizzard of their own.
RT, they have it in their grasp. There is a Baptiste on the field, so a bit more healing, but that's a perfect wall. Look at that setup. Nate had nowhere to go. It's a trade out for Frost. They were collapsed upon. Everyone trying to escape the grasp with the Orisa, but I do Warrior stacked one over the wall. Looking to make this one a winnable fight for their team, and we'll do just that, as we'll see this point flip back once again.
I love the patience there from the Pterosaurs. Like, hey, just wait. You know, wait it out. The Rhine's not moving anywhere. And Storm's Eye was staying a little bit longer than she would have expected. So just able to pick off a few. And the clutch sound barrier as well from Hyper just keeps them all alive when that Blizzard froze a few of their teammates.
The Blizzard worked out really, really well for there. But now Foliage doesn't have that at their disposal. Looking for a way in. Another one of these really long rotations, but it's gonna be interrupted with Frost's Deadeye. Someone did have to drop down, and the Immortality fields have already been utilized on both sides, so it's gonna be all of our eyes on Nate. Knows those abilities aren't there, and merely has that Deadeye available. Could be huge to zone this off, especially with the Mei. Nothing to really do against it. Look how low Scomo will eventually fall, and Delaware, they played their cards so well in that fight and are close to closing it out.
And because of how long that fight went, oh my god, nobody sees Storm's Eye. Because of how long that fight went, I was about to say they may struggle to even contest, but nobody sees Storm's Eye, and she's just able to sneak around and force OT.
You'll get OT, and that's huge because Storm's Eye is the sound barrier, but no! 3% off! You can't get it in time, and because Mickey fell in the hole of doom, that will be it. Delaware comes back after a pretty hard loss round 1 to get the reverse sweep and take Oasis.
This series, I will say, is a little bit closer than I think a lot of us thought going in. Just because, not anything against RIT, it's just Delaware's been on a run recently.
Yeah.
But RIT, they've been on a run of their own, like we said, and feeling pretty good about themselves right now, forcing and pushing one of the top teams all the way to the end at 99%. But it is Delaware who are able to clutch it up. But I like a lot of things RIT are wanting to run, and now Blizzard World is our next map. Rush isn't the greatest on 2/3 of this map. It honestly leans towards more what the Tigers were running. So we could have a little bit more of a series here.
We certainly can. And I think that is really good for the Tigers.
Yeah.
Because University of Delaware, they didn't really seem to have an answer to the Doomfist. Yes, they swapped to the Wrecking Ball. It took a while to get going and started. It's one thing to run that on control, let alone on a hybrid map where your positioning matters so much more of where you're taking your fights. You have more control about where you're going in the first place. So Blizzard World is going to be one of those maps in this series. It's going to be incredibly decisive on the direction we take forwards.
I want to see from Delaware, even though you won that map, you need to make the adjustments against the Doom, like you said, because it was not pretty. I don't think Doom is, it's weird because Doom is not a pick we see a lot, but as you said, we've from a few leaked scrims from Overwatch League teams, we've seen that Doomfist is around, especially on some of those control maps, so it's not a huge surprise that we saw him a little bit from RIT. I want to see them deal with that aggression a little bit better, though, because it seemed like always somebody in their back line, especially in those first 2 rounds, was picked off first in those fights. And that's why RIT got point first in the first 2 rounds, because they played the smart game. They looked for that opening pick. They got it, and as soon as they did get it, pushed in with all of their might and able to finish up those fights. So Delaware, a team who's normally very aggressive, very fast, had to play a little more patient and eventually worked. But especially on the offense now on Blizzard World, you can't be super patient on some of these chokes on first phase. You just have to hit the go button and hope that whatever path you take is the one that's right.
The decision to play either initiative or reactionary here, when we saw Delaware play reactionary, it wasn't too pretty for them. And I even think that the 2 rounds that they did win, they were both really close. It wasn't as decisive as we've seen. It's because they're playing that slower game style, waiting for RIT to do something that they can take advantage of. But if RIT are so good at what they're doing, then there's nothing for Delaware to have an answer for. They don't have that opportunity to come up with that. So this is going to be who's in control of that game, of that tempo, as we look into Blizzard World, because correct me if I'm wrong, you said Delaware is going to be the first one on attack. So they're going to be the ones to put their foot on the gas, especially on this first choke, because we know how difficult it can really be.
Yeah, it's going to be an extremely hard push, and RIT on the defense will go with the Doomfist again.
Yeah,
Why?
okay.
Yeah, I don't blame them. Why swap off something that for the most part worked, and it gets better on this map? Delaware will go back to the ball, but they are just going the Sombra right away, which I think is the right call. That's when it slowly started turning back into their favor. When they didn't try and play the Cassidy into this, they went more of the Sombra to try and deal with them, or even trying to hack Scomo so they can't throw those Suzus to bail out their tank.
That's what you gotta keep doing. Even if Nate doesn't get eliminations, you're disabling some portion of Rochester's well-oiled machine. keeping that up as a Sombra is so important and staying alive. All of them, meanwhile, EMP has taken a back seat as we've moved into Overwatch 2, but especially looking at how these two teams will meet here, that we're going to be in for quite the treat. Is Delaware, they just made the swap to Hyper, so I think they'll take a little bit before they decide to initiate.
Yeah, they're more just going to scout out. Ideal Warrior trying to peek the corner while in ball form and just trying to figure out how they want to go at this. Realize that, hey, they're on the Doomfist again. Hack goes through, pile drive. At least able to set up. Not much follow-up, though.
Nah, not too much really to be seen. I mean, Nate has to try and flip out pretty soon and not into a good spot either. You have the Doomfist looking at you, Nate. You can't be doing things like that at this level of gameplay. Might have gotten Frost in the meanwhile, but the Sombra is a big part of the reason. That's where Delaware's focus fire exists. Granted, they are on the point with about a tick and a half in their favor, but they're scurrying out of there as fast as they possibly can, looking to get a quick reset.
Yeah, you take it, though. Free tick, because RIT just didn't realize you were capping and wanted to make sure they kept control of high ground. Now they've given that up. Everybody rotated off, and now Delaware has all this free space to take over to allow their Zen and Ana to get in position.
This is one of those points you just need to take it in increments, right? You want to take it forward, but you can't if RIT are just up in your face. There's no choice but to be sent backwards to the spawn room. And yeah, again, a little bit more progress gained, but not enough to be truly significant.
Yeah, nothing permanent, and man, RT are just playing this extremely well. Even Nate this time around can't get the value that they need, and now everybody from Delaware, half of them are in second phase of this map because they just had to make sure they tried to get out. Ideal Warrior and Nate both just hanging out here by the rest of the theme park, and now they can try and force the pinch, but the rest of the team is just getting dove.
Wait a minute. Whoa.
Oh,
they just got another tick. No way they get the point. No, they're not going to get the point. Okay, that's a little bit better, but they got almost there is still not awful for Delaware. Talking about over half their team being in quite interesting positions. Not the end of the world.
Yeah, but at that point, it was only the supports who were at choke. And you can tell our team was like, wait, there are supports are alone. And there's no way they have Trank yet, so just dive on in, able to get two. But now you can tell they're playing a little bit more safe, knowing that, hey, it will not take too much more for a back cap to happen if they let it.
No, but at least this time they will have some ultimates to be able to deal with it. I think the biggest one here, at least for Delaware, they're looking at that EMP to really set it up. It's worked so many times, but there it goes! Doesn't even get the opportunity to use it! And that's not so hot for Delaware to start this one out. And Rochester, and they're going to look to snowball that advantage forward. There goes Joano. Minky rudely awakens just to throw everybody else against a wall. Right back to the spawn rooms, and we're already down to nearly the final minute here in University of Delaware. They haven't come up with too much yet.
They haven't used an ultimate. Like, they have yet to use an ultimate this entire round because there's been maybe 3 or 4 fights because of, you know, there was the very long stagger, and then all of a sudden Juno and Hyper get dove. Juno has struggled to have any effect because they're not allowed to breathe, which is exactly what RIT want to do. Delaware just need to, you know, pull the trigger here on some sort of plan.
It's their last shot, honestly.
Yeah.
This is the only thing that they're going to get. I mean, this is the only time they're going to have ultimates, and not even in Transcendence at the point we're at. As Zenyatta just hasn't been working out so far. But it's going to be that EMP. It hits nobody. Nobody's going to get hit by that EMP. Sound barrier's there regardless of that fact. RIT, they have the sustain to pull this one out. As 3 ultimates have been used. Nothing for Delaware. And it's the Doomfist is locking down this objective. The defense have everything under control. You got the Nano coming in onto the Wrecking Ball and even the Transcendence to help keep them alive. But at this point, who's contesting? What's your win condition? The answer is there really isn't one. Frost just ripped that right out of your hands. Minky is on the trash cleaning it up, but Hyper and a Dew Warrior come up with one apiece. Are going to take this one as far as they possibly can. And Delaware, after it seems like all of their cards have been played, they're pulling the ace up their sleeve and will get that final tick needed to extend the round.
All the ults thrown in from each side, nobody left an ult standing, and yet it is the neutral fight after that. That is what claims Delaware the point. Welcome to Overwatch 2, everybody. If that fight isn't what this game is, then, man, that was just a crucial fight from them. Just make sure, hey, Hyper almost was used as bait in that back room, so everybody got off point. Ideal Warrior has enough self-sustain to make sure they can stay alive and keep this map going.
Yeah, they're going to keep it going, but for how long? They don't have a lot of time to go with this, and they're still losing the battle. For the high ground, it's Poke. They're just pressuring that payload, who's Pod has basically been assigned to that to escort it down. Nice driver out there, but eventually Rochester, they gotta contest at some point, you'd hope. I mean, they do end up collapsing onto Nate with the Sombra, so that's certainly something to go with. Now they're gonna begin that contest. Pulse Bomb is out, another one off of that, and the payload will halt just halfway through this second phase of Blizzard World.
That stick just sets everything up for RIT, but Delaware, you know, Pulse Bomb available. EMP, will they hit it this time around? We'll see. I think they just tried to be a little bit too preemptive with it last time, trying to expect where Minky was going to be setting up, but instead nobody was there. But this time around, EMP probably going on the high ground just to try and focus out ScoMo or Stormzine.
Those are going to be your two targets, but hey, you know, I'm not going to complain about Frost going down either, especially being how close to the overclock as they were. So Caleb will be on the move once again. EMP still in the grasp. Will get this onto some players this time. Minky is eliminated immediately afterwards. And Pod looking to follow it up. Recall forced out, just retreating back to the payload, forcing the time, knowing only 30 seconds remain.
They will be able to get a slight touch in. Juno has to play safe.
They're gonna have to play safe, and especially so, they're just gonna completely back off with those two support movements. They know they can't match it, and they're gonna lose Hyper as a result. That might as well just be over at this time, because now Delaware, they're gonna have to scramble to just get another fight back into this, or they're not even gonna get the chance. They're just hoping to draw this out long enough for the rest of their players to return, give them a fighting chance. You got the Transcendence, but that's about all they have working for you. Foliage can continue to pressure this one out with that Pulse Bomb. Finding one elimination would actually be huge. You're not even going to get the Transcendence off because Minky and Frost are going absolutely crazy, closing it out at the last moment possible. Still holding on to this Pulse Bomb. As Rochester, they're coming up with what they need. Only the Wrecking Ball remains between them and a stop on this defense. We will not get to see the third portion of Blizzard World today, and it is a nice defense from Rochester.
Man, Juno, I thought they were going to use it there because beginning of that stall, it was about the 10-second mark where both of us were like, hey, this is getting a little ugly here for Delaware. They were at 90% able to build it up right as overtime hit, but just it felt like they were waiting for RIT to use an ultimate, but all of a sudden they get dove by Mickey and I believe Foliage as well, and just taken up before they can even get it down. I will say they dealt with the Doom a decent way, but it still felt like they were cautious on their approach a little bit.
It was currently scrappy,
yeah,
to be said. We're still finding the balance here between, are we reacting to what they're doing, are we initiating? And that's kind of the thing. I almost like to think of University's supports, Delaware, their supports are basically bait at this point. The rest of the team, they're pretty self-sustainable. But now they're actually going to swap something up, which makes them slightly less so. Torbjorn isn't as independent as you would normally think he would be.
Yeah, but it does give at least the notice of, hey, Foliage is on the flank, Minky's on the flank.
Yeah.
And it's just another distraction for RT when they try and dive into the UDEL backline. That, hey, somebody's got to shoot turret, and if they don't, it could be what finishes up some of these kills. So I don't mind it here as long as everybody, you have a feeling we're playing right behind point on that high ground. Not going to try and play it too dangerous there over by the coaster high ground.
No, it's there's not really too much to be set up. I mean, Nate's going to be hanging out with Juno and Hyper, and the turret's a nice companion, and now it's not because it's been disassembled, but once that comes back up, you'll be able to do it. But Delaware, they're giving up a lot of space by playing this composition, putting this in basically a one-fight scenario versus on their attack. We saw quite the opposite. So all Minky and Foliage need to do is get up on this high ground and disrupt. If they can force them off, look how vulnerable Hyper and Juno are. They can go down easily, but they lost two along the way of doing so. That's a great example of a reaction from Delaware, and one that worked out successfully.
Everett just dives on in. They even land the Suzu from ScoMo on a Mickey to deny the Bionade that got hit by a Hyper to try and fend it off, but Ideal Warrior that time just great peel. Knocks him around, disrupts him a little bit, and ScoMo just loses where Mickey are, and just 1-2, able to take him out. I still feel Juno is going to have a very rough round because they're so diveable, but they're just have to play extremely safe.
Juno's job is just simply to stay alive. If you can stay alive as a Zenyatta, the threat of you being there and having orbs out is enough. But that's the thing, look at this rotation! Delaware, they read what RIT were doing and rotated to grab Frost off of the back of it. Different plays like this, pulling these positioning, it's so cool to be able to witness here. And this is what we're talking about with the supports. Juno is holding hands with Hyper right now, afraid of anyone being able to watch them out and can provide that threat from farther away. As RIT are still yet to find that opening, they're staggering themselves out. Need to get a reset sometime soon.
I think that will be the reset. Yeah, Frost is dead. Pod takes him out. Yeah, that'll be the reset here for RIT. Just depends on how many members will actually get staggered out. But as you say, it was a great rotation from Delaware. Like, hey, they're rotating all the way around. Okay, let's go over there. To the opposite high ground. Because then, A, you can't get dove. And, well, Pod finds them out. And the staggers just keep coming. Nobody is dying from RIT. And Delaware's like, hey, we'll take another 20 seconds off. We can just force you to actually reset. So it was very reminiscent of Delaware, right? They were stuck in the backline for a little bit. It takes an extended time, and now RIT only a minute and a half. They don't have a lot to work with still here, Tiny.
No, that fight went so long for them, and it's gonna be another long time before they can even take an engage. They lose 2 off the rotation here. As this is the Delaware, they're finding their strengths. They're slowly starting to look better and better. This match goes on, but chances for RIT, they're running low.
They are running very low. EMP getting somewhat close, may not have it till the very end of this fight. Probably going to use this Kitsune Rush when they get it to try and re-aggress in the mid-fight.
And we'll look for that opportunity to come up. We got the sound barrier too from Stormeye, but I mean, what Delaware have? They got 4 in the back pocket, 2 immediately expended. They used to help Zone, but they lose Hyper anyway, so that doesn't really seem to matter to them. Nice trade out for Skomo, however, makes it somewhat winnable. 3v3 in the fight. This Ideal Warrior, a lot of zoning tools in the grasp of the defense, should they wish to unleash it, but the pieces, they're slowly crumbling apart. University of Delaware, they're losing that iron grip on the point, and it looks like they're willing to give up some time and space, but RIT, they're nowhere really to be seen.
They had to reset as well because they lost 3 during that. So everybody's just trying to catch up to where Mickey and Storm's Eye are, and this leaves it all to the final fight.
It's going to be the final fight to be the deciding factor. Now the tools are in RIT's favor. You're going to see them out, Hyper falling once more. That vulnerable piece down, all the pressure now onto that Zenyatta to keep this one going. RIT, they're fighting for their lives in this map to keep it going, and at the rates they are, it seems incredibly possible to be able to pull this through. They just need to deny that space. A nice hack on the Ideal Warrior, keep them out of bounds for a little bit, but eventually they will all fall, and RIT are giving themselves a fighting chance.
2.5 minutes back on the clock. Basically have to finish second phase and you even up the series. If not, Delaware will head into Esperanza with this series clincher available. But RT, it was decent patience from them. I like them actually just resetting there. It's like, hey, you can't feed in this, because if you have Minky die when they're kind of hiding there underneath behind point, then that entire round is just gone, because you wouldn't have had the sustain and the damage to actually win the fight.
And it was good decision making too to be able to do that. I mean, normally Kiriko on the point would be a good decision to make, but she didn't have anyone to teleport to, so she just got stomped. And now RIT, they're off in La La Land, trying to either reset or find something to happen. Looks like the reset is going to be the option to go for, as they're running down to the last 90 seconds to put this one through, but have some tools in their pockets.
EMP available. Juno getting close to the Transcendence. If they can try and use EMP, focus out Juno before they're able to get that off, could be the setup they need to finish up the rest of the kills and set themselves up very well with the high ground and with the pulse bomb for the after fight.
Positioning alone is just kind of brutal. University of Delaware, they got all the time and space. I mean, you just pile drive, get a shot in from Nate. Like, that's all you need to do. Rochester, they're going to continue to lose that time. They want to push the high ground, but the payload is going to become very important here in just a couple seconds.
Yeah, they're trying to rotate over to that high ground. Now, Ideal Warrior will meet them, gets hacked before the pile drive can go through, and they will get forced to fully retreat.
And that's really big to get the Wrecking Ball out for a hot minute. You know, you got health packs everywhere, so who will be returning in just a second. But at this time, it's about controlling that high ground, that payload, and Juno is having a hard time, has to run away, or at least float as Zenyatta does. The hack onto Hyper just gets brought as a payback. It's a 2-for-1, make it a 3-for-1. As Delaware, they're keeping themselves alive, just have the mobility, and we're gonna find it down to the last 20 seconds.
Juno showing like, hey, I can fight for myself if need be. Able to pick up a nice little 2-piece. And now Minefield will be available here for Ideal Warrior just to try and deny the pressure on the point that RIT may try and use. But RIT 4 ultimates here for this potentially final fight.
4 ultimates, the best chance they've gotten so far, but there goes one of them. Voyage, you have to have them in the fight and the supports. They got the EMP up, but that downtime isn't enough to follow through. There's both support ultimates appearing, and nobody is on the court to keep this one running. They had the tools, Salty, they had it was there. But no, Delaware will be taking this one away and set it up to match point.
Oh man, everything falls apart for the Tigers in the last 20 seconds. There's nothing seem to go their way. This is the end of it too. Pod crucial kill on the Foliage. Pulse bomb not available at that point. And you see, it's always an Ajax from Storm's Eye. I didn't even realize that at first glance. We were looking at everything else. Storm's Eye, she just can't get the beat down. And the EMP was good. It just the follow-up was not there. Juno lives at 20 health when they pop that Transcendence. And man, the Blue Hens are getting pushed tonight, that's for sure. But RT just can't seem to close out these maps.
No, not quite. I mean, the 2-0 scoreline doesn't really do this match justice, but at the same time, it's great if you can keep the mid-game interesting. Yes, but if you're not able to close it out, it simply is not going to matter. In the long run, Esperanza is where we'll be heading for our third map, but not right this second, though, as we will be heading to a quick break before we get there, so don't go anywhere. We'll see the next map of this exciting match shortly. And we are back once again. Very speedy break here. You don't even get to see us again. We just get to see this beautiful streets of Portugal in Esperanza, our third map in University of Delaware. They're on that match point. And, you know, it could just end here if RIT aren't able to close this one out.
It seems like they might be able to. Ideal Warrior not on the Wrecking Ball, though, this time. Going back over to that Orisa. What they expected Mickey to go on the Doomfist over on Oasis University when they first went on this hero. Was not the case. So now that Javelin Spin will just try and deny Mickey those dives, make him a little bit uncomfortable. The Jab Throw as well to get him out of that power block. So just a lot of counter dive now for Delaware.
This is a combo we haven't seen yet. I'm quite interested to see how it actually ends up playing out. And to be fair, I could have expected the ball, and that could have gone just fine for Delaware, but no, they think this is going to be the way to go. And I think so too, with their supports being much less vulnerable, which makes Minky's job much more difficult. Look how low they are, especially Foliage. Holding down this high ground, rock solid. This is the style that Delaware likes to play. The robot has been open for quite some time. Just hasn't really been where the fight's taken place, but it might be now with a nice kunai to the face. And Juno's opened this fight wide open, and Ideal Warrior will rush in, chasing after Minky on their escape. As they do, pop the Kiriko in their sights. We'll have to teleport out, but University of Delaware, once you give them an inch, they're going to take a whole mile to run away with this and be the first one to get that robot.
I love the swap over and just match the Lucio Kiriko because, as you said, a lot more healing to go around. They're not as diveable. They at least have a nice escape mechanism one way or another. And Ideal Warrior and Nate just seem to be constantly watching the backline now. And Minky, yes, they get the ult charges they want, but not the eliminations that they crucially need.
No, you can tell that RIT, they're not finding that same target that I have been in the past. It's just going to be Nate at this point. That's who you want, but now you have to deal with the Kitsune rush. Juno got that up so quickly. And that's going to rush forward from Ideal. Has that Terror Surge. Don't get everyone back in. Purple Bomb layered on top. Pod with 3 in this engagement alone. Nice teamwork from University of Delaware. And they're going to be rewarded nicely for it.
What a pulse from Pod. Just line them up. 1, 2, 3, and... man, RT, you gotta win a fight soon before this gets too out of reach. I know this is very early to say that, but with a team like Delaware, they love to ride the momentum. If you give them this point here in one extra fight, they could turn into 100 meters plus.
It really could. It's not easy to turn back around. The Kitsune rush is necessary to get them there, but nobody can test the point. They end up getting Nate on the high. Delaware, they got what they wanted. They're going to try to sustain this, though. They want to win this engagement out with that sound barrier from the other side. Later ultimate usually will be fare better in this case, especially with Juno falling down to the Kiriko. Not a lot of support for everyone remaining, and yes, it will be a fight win for RIT, but right now, the bar has been set so high for them to return from.
Delaware able to get the take. That is so crucial for them, because now they get the close spawn. They can play over towards Bridge here on the high ground for this next fight, and they don't have to worry about the bots sticking there any longer when they bring it back around.
Now they have a lot of opportunity, and getting this positioning is going to be massive. Minky wasn't quite there in time to be able to capitalize on it, so everyone's kind of just waiting for that opportunity to go out, wait for somebody to overextend, and actually it's going to be Pod off on the other side. Wasn't respecting that overclock, so Frost will take them down. That barrier's still going to be moving forward for the time being, in Delaware, they're playing this patiently, playing it slow, the way we know that they like to.
They're just maybe a little bit too patient for my liking. Eventually, we'll try and go in here, and now, there we go. Jab spin, great space, and now RT has to try and retake.
Hey, we like patience, but now it's kind of rough because they gave up so much time and distance while they did, because this point is nearly at that other at the barrier. They could get the spawns, give them right back as RIT. This is a huge win for them.
Huge win. They should get lead and tick just from that alone, because of how long Delaware just kind of sat there, not sure how they wanted to go at it. But that will be tie and probably the lead here once the bot moves. Delaware switching it up. Nate going back over to the soundbar and realizing the cast enemy not doing what they want.
Likely a good choice that adds a lot of pressure onto Minky as well as the Doomfist to be a little more cautious with how they're positioned at the time being. Not just a Terror Surge with a lot of damage, but just Meteor Strike back in on top of it. Won't be them to fall, though. It will be Hyper as the Kitsune crushes. Will be the end to this tale of the fight as Frost gets them in there. RIT, they're keeping that momentum going. They have the snowball's got to end sometime soon, otherwise Delaware, they're going to get to a point they can't return from.
Delaware only have the sound barrier for this fight as well. They don't have anything offensive they can try and use. Storm's Eye has her sound barrier if they need it, but all eyes on Foliage. You know, we talked about Pod's pulse bomb earlier. I wonder if Foliage can try and match it.
That would be great, especially if it was on a Hyper right now. Having sound barrier in the mix, it just makes this fight a whole lot easier for RIT to have to work with. Of course, they have the mirror if necessary, but we have Foliage Decides to place this pulse bomb, playing rather passive for the time being, and it will cost them Frost. Still looking for that spot. Spots the Sombra out, and now I don't think we're going to see the pulse bomb. Just as I spoke, we are going to see the pulse bomb, but any time that RIT aren't going to benefit from it. And Delaware, they are going to stop the bleeding, get this turned back around, but still with a bit of a hill to climb.
It's a hill to climb, but it's a workable hill because they already have that tick clinched. If it was even 30 meters here and not the tick yet, then it could have been a little bit harder of a hill for Delaware to climb. Did not need to use sound barrier as well, so now ultimate advantage swings back into their favor.
And that's a really big fight for them to be able to win too. Especially against Smoothie Horns. They canceled the forward spawn, so we already even playing field there. This can be big, but Frost just took that advantage right out to their favor. Right, they have that overclock in their grasp. Several ultimates being played out on the field. The robots dangerous place to be, especially with the EMP and Pulse Bomb. Minky just did not have a good time, but I'm sorry. Frost comes up on, I believe, their third or maybe fourth in the kill feed just in this fight alone. We'll turn this one back around for their team, and man, what a showing from Frost.
All the resources went into Frost just to make sure they keep them alive, and it does exactly what they need it to do, able to pick up 3 kills during that fight. And even though, yes, EMP, Terra Surge used, nothing comes out of it other than a dead Minky.
Dead Minky is not helpful Minky. The same thing with Juno. Dead Juno was not a helpful Juno. Especially when they had the Kitsune Rush available. So this is RIT's fight to win, just have to close it out. It can sometimes be their weakness. Forces the recall out of pod as they're looking to pressure those remaining players, but it doesn't matter. The longer this goes, the more staggers there are, the better it is for RIT.
This is getting into, is it even possible territory anymore? But hey, nice little hack.
Okay.
Minky taken out. Hyper is traded.
Hyper's gonna get the trade out here. But the spawns are so much closer for Delaware, quite literally in sight, so pulling this one out could be difficult, especially with that Kitsune Rush out. The fact that Nate isn't there, they can actually follow up on it, and players are wisely playing out of their grasp. You still got the pulse bomb to bring down Ideal Warrior. Yeah, can't survive that chunk damage. Will cost them their life, but slightly more blue in the kill feed and red, and the robot is going to continue just to get a couple more meters here as the spawn, the completion is in sight.
Completion almost here in Portugal. Delaware is struggling to get anybody near this point. Ideal Warrior is out there, but they're almost dead. Mickey's able to pick one up as well.
And Mickey's got this one in the bag. Delaware, they got a pulse bomb. It's gonna come up with something. He puts and Suzu. It's even better. Sound Barrier practically a victory song at this point because Esperanza is looking to be coming to an end as soon as Nate is disposed of. There's gonna be a lot of staggers, and not even staggers, more just stall coming in, throwing something at the point to make it done. You got the Terra Surge. And no one's gonna be here playing near that. I can't blame them. You have an EMP coming up. Delaware's last hope to be able to turn this around because Rochester, they've used everything in this fight, and it looks like that they are going to have to take another whack at it because they are going to lose it at final meter, but it doesn't matter because their lead is so significant.
Their lead is just at a ridiculous point now. 139 meters of progress. You had to throw everything in it, but it was a gorgeous EMP there from Nate. 2 of the players from RT killed within like half a second of that EMP landing, and hey, they at least stay alive, Tiny, for one more minute.
They're alive. They got another chance, but it looks like they're going to deny the forward spawns. RIT aren't going to contest there, so we're back to the even playing field, but last time I said that was when RIT was able to find somebody kind of out of position. Delaware, they used a lot just to bring the robot back to where it is now. And rather than a hill, it's more of a mountain to climb at this rate, and all they got is a down barrier to really do it. It's going to likely have to be used to keep them alive through this Kitsune Rush, unless they just back off and negate it immediately with the resurgence from that ultimate. Extra shield help hang off into their favor, but RIT, they just built up one of their own. They can turn this back around. It's such a long, drawn-out fight, and the time is dwindling down, making this even more important for either team to win. Could be map deciding at the rate we are playing in RIT. If they pull this out, they got the resources. They're dumping everything. 5 ultimates in this fight. They better win it out. They will lose Minky for it, which is not too great for them. They'll be returning back, but they have the damage necessary to take Ideal Warrior down. No more horse to hide behind. behind. Everyone else is vulnerable, scrambling to stay alive, scrambling to make something happen in a desperate time. Because right now, RIT, they're fighting to stay alive in this series. This is their chance to take it further, take the distance in map, and even potentially a win later down, but one step at a time. They have to fight against another EMP and a Terra Surge before they get there. Stall is insane. There's that EMP on to 4, but there's no follow-up at all. Minky will get incredibly low, but the Sunu so great from Stormo, so incredibly timed that he's going to be able to stay alive. Delaware, though, they've sustained this long enough, and oh my gosh, my throat is about to dry out because of how ridiculously long this has gone, Jesse. But we are going to see even more of Esperanza.
It is going to continue on. 5-man EMP. Foliage is able to get out of the EMP effect right away just with the recall, but it eventually is able to get them what they need. They still need to win a fight here, though, on this street, and then another one further along, so job definitely not done here from Delaware. Hyper has a sound barrier to answer this Kitsune rush if need be.
Well, we do know what the need be. The Kitsunes have been amazing from Juano, and the sustain is here. University will get them forward. They're on surge, but Yuriko's are going to be the trade out. Still even until Hyper goes down. No support available. Damage taken is permanent, as Delaware are going to have to take this one even further, whether they like it or not, because RIT has got themselves a map, and guaranteed we are not seeing a 3-0 today.
Will not be a 3-0. The Tigers stay alive. Dorado will now be our next destination, but man, I'll give credit to Delaware. They pushed it near the end. It was just, they got, you know, as the victim of the snowball. RT got such a great run near the end here. We thought this map was done. We didn't even think we were going to see the extra minute plus overtime because of how well they were playing. But man, this Doomfist, especially at Esperanza, there's so many places for them to try and move around, so much high ground to try and work with. And that is the same issue I think Delaware may face on Dorado. Doomfist is pretty decent on Dorado. There's a lot of rollouts you can use. And it seems to be the one blind spot of this Delaware team that we haven't honestly seen all season long.
It's just something they haven't been able to handle, and I think they're used to playing more of a passive style, capitalizing the mistakes of their opponents, but it's a little too fast for them to be able to work with. Like we saw, Jesse, yeah. I remember back when they had won that first fight, they had captured the first spawns. Everything looked great for Delaware, but then they got stuck up in that middle choke. They gave up for free, essentially, that tick mark, and RIT ran away with it from there. You cannot allow those things to continue to happen. It's a double-edged sword. So moving in to Dorado, where arguably your opponents are going to be stronger here, what is the option? Do you go back to that Wrecking Ball comp? Is that something on the table? Or do you stick with what you're doing and just hope that it continues to work out?
I think we're probably going closer to back to the Wrecking Ball, only because the Orisa will struggle, especially on the offense, to try and deal with as many angles that RIT will be trying to shoot from, especially on this first and second phase. Right, first phase, you got the two different high grounds that are connected. There's nothing Orisa can do that, all right, jab spin to try and eat up anything, but at that point, you have to commit to a very long rotate, or to sit on cart and just try and hope that you live. So I have a feeling they're swapping back over to the Wrecking Ball, trying to disrupt that backline just a little bit more, because that's when they had the most success, trying to counter that aggression with their own level of aggression instead of just trying to absorb and react that way. But I will say RIT, there's a reason why they've won 5 straight. They have found a nice little niche in this meta with the Doomfist being very good. And even though some teams don't like running the Doomfist, they are making it work. That is for sure, and they're teasing it yet again. Delaware, they will be going back over to that Wrecking Ball.
It's definitely a decision that the wise Twin Salty has emphasized. And, you know, the switch up was needed. Very, very necessary. But to go back on, you got Nate on the Torbjorn. This is going to be great. It's going to add a thorn to the side for Foliage and Minky as they try to go in. So, keeping with the same idea that we're running with that Doomfist. Really, it's only good if you're really good at it. It works super well, or it just doesn't work at all. It falls apart into a mess. And this is something that Rochester have down to seemingly a science. But now, they're facing a different opponent with a different comp. How will they fare here?
They at least played against it a little bit on Oasis, so it's not completely foreign. Frost, yeah, I have a feeling that is the side of swap. Ideal of this pile drive, finishes him off. Minky does pick up Pod extremely early.
Yeah, you did get that trade out, so I mean, losing the Widow isn't awful, and especially across, yeah, moving to the Hanzo warranted. I'm not surprised by that whatsoever. You got a little extra second for that lunge cooldown too, so slight more mobility, but the high ground is still in control of Delaware, and really the turret's in control of high ground. The turret don't miss, okay? The turret just shoots things, and Stormeye has just lost the turret too. And it's winning the battle for the team because Ideal Warriors pile drive sets this up perfectly for Pod to follow through, and Delaware, they seem to have a good understanding of how to defend.
Ideal Warrior is just there to contest point when the rest of Delaware either are flanking around, aka Pod, or just chilling up on that high ground. RT, they will go off of the Doomfist, going over to the Winston. Easier pressure to put on a Juno and Hyper as a solid group instead of just trying to pick off one themselves, and the rotate now trying to go around. But again, they're having the issue of point getting contested.
Mickey didn't even have a chance to do anything, just kind of sat there looking around for somebody to be there to heal him, but nope, there's nobody, Minky. There's nobody, but hey, on the plus side, Stormeye does manage to get up onto the high ground and take out Juno, so that's a great start with 2 going down. Delaware, their spawns are longer. Maybe they have a chance at coming in, but it's gotta be quick.
Time to try again.
Nate has the Molten Core if they need to try and use it just to try and stall. Ideal Warriors, well, it's like, hey, I'll just hang on car for a little bit. Don't worry, guys.
Yeah.
So turret still an issue because there's nobody long range except for Frost and Skomo who can really break that turret.
And I guess you get a little tickle power from the Winston secondary fires, but that's not gonna do too much either. You got to down though. The win condition is gone. The turret has disappeared. But yeah, a little bit more to go in Dorado than just this first area. Rounding this choke point can be rather difficult for many teams. You gotta Kitsune Rush. It makes it a little bit easier to kind of work around, makes your opponents move around, but hot loud. Make sure you watch where you're putting your toes. Minky certainly did it, and they fall over rather quickly. Frost following a similar fate, and yeah, everyone else hopping in the lava. Quick reset to give it another chance.
I like the multi-core there from Nate. It's like, oh, let's put it in the back. Try and counter out the dive that way. It's the only true way Nate can without the turret to try and counter out that dive. Juno now has that Transcendence. Hyper has the Nano. I'm guessing just to put it on the Ideal Warrior just to reboost their HP a little bit. RT have made the swap over to the Pharmacy, knowing that, hey, there's no direct hit scan, but the turret don't care.
60 seconds.
Here's the hit scan. That's what the turret does.
Oh my
man.
God.
What are we watching right now? What are we watching?
This is weird.
Turret watch.
Yeah.
Watching.
Overwatch.
Man, I love this game. It's funny. I do like the switch to the far though. It's a good idea to work with, but really only for 40 seconds to make something happen. And you got a Winston with the pulse bomb stuck to him. It's gonna get burned down. Delaware, they're holding on to this one tight, even after a little bit of silly business. 26 seconds remaining, and what do Rochester really have to work with? Not too much.
They can maybe build the barrage later on. Mickey should have Purple Rage to stall out this point, but they don't really have a lot, at least initially, to open up the fight. Ideal Warrior has the minefield and gets the Nano as well. It's a Juno!
And Juno needed to look at that to build up the Transcendence. Do you have enough to keep your Ana alive? Everyone's just going to go back to Pale and knowing that you only need to contest through this choke point. This is big. But Rochester have built up the barrage in time, and he does not care about that one. Immediately taking it out, followed up with Skomo as Delaware, they're set up for an amazing first point hold there. If they can pull this one out, upset with their last finish on Esperanza. Wants to make Dorado a statement, set the bar super high for them to be able to attack and pull it out, but Nate sits AFK on the cart. That actually might not be so good for them because it wasn't over. Losing the soldier there means that Frost has a lot more time to go and get off. Not again! Not again! Salty! Why does this keep happening? Why?
Score.
Oh man, that was like a 4v2. Oh, alright, oh man, that
Initiating match.
they had that too. Because as you said, like I think Nate thought the round was done. So he kind of just stood still, not realizing, hey, another touch would come through. But because of how long OT went, that overtime ticker does not last very long. And oh man, RIT me hitting themselves for that. 46 meters only. Didn't even get it past Archway, which is usually where, like, okay, if you get halted at the beginning of Dorado, it's usually under Arch against a rush comp. But They didn't even get to do that. That's what they'll try to do. Symmetra coming out, Reaper, Ryan as well, but man, that was just a rough fight there for RIT. I like the adaptation from Nate into like, hey, for this last fight, also up the soldier. Make sure that Pharmacy can't get the value it needs, and he was a crucial factor to denying that barrage.
It was great. I loved it, but Nate also delivered them a fight win, a silver platter, and nobody touched. You know what? Shoulda, coulda, woulda, whatever. We're moving on to this attack round where Rochester, they're pulling out this Reinhardt brawl. They need to play. They don't have another choice. This is what they have to do. If this doesn't work, they're basically done. But Nate, look at University of Delaware. They know what's happening. Look at the swaps they just made. You have Nate moving to the Pharmacy. You got Ideal Warrior here. It's just a poke comp. All this Reinhardt comp is going to do is just tank damage. Nobody's going to have to play close. Nobody's going to want to play close. Once this is taken care of through this little initial archway, that's going to be just about it. Zafara has to be the one to counter it out, but losing ScoMo, that basically sends this one falling down, rather ambulancing at the point we're at. And you can hope somebody can get back and contest, but look at that blue box of victory. It's right there.
It is not very far. It's up to Mickey and
think
Frost to touch, but I don't think it's possible.
I don't know.
Delaware,
they
struggled a little bit at times with the Doom, but yeah, that's it.
Wow.
RIT, they push. Not enough, though. 3-1 for the Blue Hens.
Woo! Now that is what Delaware's saying, that no, we are the better team here. Was not happy with how close that the rest of this was, and to be honest, RIT put up a really, really great fight through the 3 maps, but just couldn't hold it together for Dorado, which is rather unfortunate with the length this series could have potentially gone to. But for now, Delaware, they'll be happening going up to a 12-1 record, I believe, which is absolutely ridiculous to have at the point we are in the season as playoffs are inching closer and closer. But man, what a series this was.
What a series. I will say, RIT, I think you've earned a lot of people's respect tonight because nobody thought you were pushing Delaware as much as you did, and honestly exposed a weak spot that Delaware will have to, go to the VOD reviews with, like, hey, this Doom gave us a lot of trouble. They eventually, I liked the Torb call. It helped a lot, the Ana as well. I liked that at the end, hey, I'll nano my Zen just to make sure they stay alive for that extra second so they can use the Transcendence on me to keep me alive a few seconds later. So Delaware, hey, 12-1. Their big match is the final week of the regular season against Tennessee, which obviously that'll honestly be the battle for first. But hey, we have Juno, so we'll have to see, some of their thoughts on tonight.
We will get to see some of their thoughts coming up here in just a second as we get them ready to head into the lab. I do believe we do have them sitting, waiting to drag them in, if I'm not mistaken. So before we get there, we're going to go get some stuff set up, and we'll see you back as we get to hear from Juno from University of Delaware. And welcome back once again to the EGF Collegiate Overwatch channel. Tiny, Shiny, and Twin Salty. And actually, we got another guest coming in behind the scenes. Juno will be joining us for another interview. And oh my goodness, what a match that was. How are you feeling after how crazy of that gameplay we just saw?
We feel good. I think their comp kind of threw us for a little bit of a loop because no one really plays Doomfist scrims. So I think you saw us get a little bit confused with, especially on Esperanza. That map was not great for us, but I'm proud of my team. I think we figured it out, especially on Dorado, and then I think we adapted and figured it out quite well.
Yeah, so what was the big thing you felt you guys changed against the Doomfist comp that turned it around? Because as you said, it seemed like it took you guys a while to figure out exactly how you wanted to work around the Doom.
Yeah, so what we actually kind of figured out, especially at the end after Esperanza, was that if we just ignore the Doomfist, he doesn't really do much on his own, especially when I'm on like Kiriko and stuff like that. So I think especially with the Torb on Dorado, we just kind of poked him out and he couldn't really get much value in. And then once you shut down the Doomfist, their whole comp just kind of shuts down. So I think the Torb really helped, and then just good scouting. I think communication is key for like figuring out where they go and when they're doing stuff.
100%. And now 12-1 on the season now for you guys. Second place in the league behind Tennessee, who you will play in 2 weeks' time. I know it's skipping ahead of next week, but how are you guys looking at the potentially, first place matchup in just 2 weeks' time?
I think we're feeling pretty confident. I mean, we played them once, we beat them once. So I think if we just kind of replicate that success, we can do it again. I think they're always a bunch of fun to play against. I think Hydra especially, special shout out to him. He's kind of a menace on that Tracer. So it's a lot of fun to kind of match up and figure out exactly what they're going to do each week. But I think we do a little scouting sometimes, and then we do a lot of scrimming. And so I think we're just going to try and be as prepared as we can. And hopefully it'll just be a nice fun match to see who can get first place.
Oh yeah, me and Salty for sure are looking forward to that match so much. So we'll see you back in about 2 weeks. But before we head out today, do you have any shout outs that you'd like to make?
I mean, I guess shout out to my team again. I think, as I said, we adjusted pretty well after we were kind of thrown a little bit for a loop with the new comp. And then I guess shout out to our coach as well, John. He kind of helped us kind of dig us out of the little hole that we found ourselves in, especially after Esperanza. And then, yeah, shout out to all the people that watch. I mean, shout out to my family and my friends that kind of watch every week when I tell them when the stream is happening. And then, yeah, shout out to all the fans.
Yeah, it's some great people to shout out and help get this esports scene on its feet. But in the meantime, that is going to be all we have for today's first matchup. Juno, thank you for joining us. Go ahead and celebrate the victory with your team. And I know Salty and I here, we still got one more match coming your way in just a little bit. So don't go anywhere. Stay tuned as we'll be back with match number 2 after a short break.
Though we are many, we are part of something. A force. Bigger than all of us. Our distinct fingerprints collectively shaping and forever changing what makes UConn, UConn. Forever making our mark. Forever making UConn a part of us.
Esports is competitive gaming. Imagine playing really any video game you ever enjoyed playing, but playing it competitively to the best of your abilities. The Esports Club, though, we're more than just competitive teams. We host gaming for everybody. We just want people to come out, play games, have fun, and then hopefully host a few good teams that might win a few championships for the school.
We are definitely developing and pushing to build and develop that infrastructure that a lot of other clubs already have. Whatever skill level you are, you can come out, have fun, compete, don't compete. We welcome anyone.
There's not really a spot elsewhere for people to just play video games. Our club is definitely like all-inclusive, so if you're like even just a casual gamer that games, an hour a day or an hour a week, it doesn't really matter. You can come and play and make friends, so that's really what it's all about.
A club like this is meant to bring games out of the dorm room and meet other people, make friends. We do game nights every other Friday night. You'll get an opportunity to play some games you've never played and meet some people you wouldn't meet otherwise. So if you're interested in gaming, come on out to the club and see what it's about.
Hello once more, EGF Collegiate fans. It is Tiny Shiny and Twin Salty back once again for another collegiate matchup this evening. The last one we have set up, and we have two teams that are ready to kick it off here shortly.
Yeah, we got the UConn Huskies versus Tennessee Volunteers here. Tennessee 12-1 on the season. The only loss being to Delaware a few weeks ago. Obviously still feeling pretty good about themselves leading up to their next matchup against Delaware, like we kind of teased in the previous match, just in 2 weeks' time. The Huskies, it's been here nor there. They've had matches where they seem very competitive and they seem very close, but at least since the spring split started, they have a new player coming in, and it seems like they've been starting to get it together just a little bit more.
That's the thing. We're moving later into the season. You've had more time to practice, get some experience, and figure out what works. Where do all of these pieces kind of fit in? As they certainly have a tough opponent at their face today. The number 1 seed only dropped against the number 2 team, so quite daunting to look that in the face for sure. But starting out on Control, those tend to be the maps that can often go the favor of the supposed underdog team in this scenario. So looking at our Control map selection, it appears to be Oasis.
Yes, same map pool like we saw earlier. Oasis, Blizzard World, Esperanza. We got to see a little bit of Dorado, not too much of it in the previous series. And eventually we may lead to the ruins of Greece. But for now, it will be Oasis. And I think UConn, again, it depends on who's in on tank. If we see, your boy Wings on tank, he is the Rhine extraordinaire of that team. It's pretty easy to tell, hey, they're running the Rhine Rush comp. But if it is not your boy Wings in for the Huskies, we could see a few more different looks.
And that's the advantage of having a deeper roster, is that you have the option to have players that can take these steps and have these strengths play out. But it actually doesn't look like we are going to see the Reinhardt player in, so variety is where we are headed.
Yeah, Rich, who is a little bit newer to the team, they've been trying to get them just a little bit more reps as of late. But they've had, honestly, a pretty decent campaign so far here in the spring split. Both teams wanting to run the Winston, at least initially. Tiz guys, I think they're just memeing on the Zen. I have a feeling they're swapping off, or maybe they're actually... they're staying on. So it'll be the Zen for UConn, the Lucio for Tennessee being the sole differences for that support line. Actually, Parveer as well on the Kiriko.
They're playing with thin ice. UConn is putting it on a Zen into a dive, but if they can end these fights quickly, I mean, it could totally work out for them. But no, the hack on the Ridge certainly is going to be their demise, and Hydra immediately taking that one down. Tennessee, they have support line to back them up. They got the sustain through here. I'm not too shocked they're going to be the ones winning out this first fight.
Not too shy, just a little bit of a comp difference there for Tennessee. Just a little more sustain, a little more focusing power as well, as Rich now comes back into it. Everybody's starting to make their way to point, but now the high ground still in control of the Volunteers.
Volunteers got the control. Granted, they don't have too many people up there to really handle it. So they're going to drop down with Blamity so low, you don't have a choice. Hydra has to get the elimination. Will get it onto Sam. Absolutely huge, but the trade onto the Kiriko is going to hurt. When is it closed out, and the Bionade will do just that for UConn. They're going to get that control right back.
See, if UConn can continue to keep this space, a decent margin between them and UConn, especially with their backline, then they definitely have a good chance of taking this. It's just, if Tennessee are able to put a lot of pressure onto Tiz guys and onto Lamborghini as well, it may be a little bit of a struggle for them late on because the sustain is just not there. But if they can keep the distance, make the fights decently quick, there is definitely the possibility they can win more of these fights.
It's going to be a lot about the timing, a lot about that pacing, but you also got a Winston who pancakes the post very, very well. This guy's going to be the victim of that, but Lamborghini Genie is there to pull them up, but a nice stick from Duckster shuts that all down. 2 to go down in their name, and it's an even fight, however. Could go either way, but Rich with no sustain really being there is going to do it, and still a Nano Boost to be unleashed. And UConn, they're still fighting this one out, and it's totally worth it because the Nano to Sam is just going to win this point out. The Tracers, all that's remain in an exciting duel to decide who will come out on top, and even then, if UConn don't, they're stalling this out. They're getting the percentage up, Salty, just enough for their team to return into the fight with 4 ultimates of their own to push this to even further length.
Yeah, just able to stall it out. Trank used here from Tiz guys, forced out the Somber as well from Noodles.
They're gonna get the Sound Beer out, bolts the port alt, rushing University of Tennessee back into this one in the EMP. To get it all lights out dark in here, especially for Tiz guys. Now still gonna use that Deadeye, hoping to get something. Sleep onto the primaling Winston, not gonna get enough combo damage to get it down, but UConn, they're still in control. Getting that percentage closer and closer. It's gonna be great. And the amount of time to be able to drag out of this, putting it in a one-site scenario, even if they lose it out now, yeah, U10, they're getting those eliminations finally wrapped up, will get the point, but man, UConn held that onto that for a while.
It's so much free percentage that they probably didn't think they were going to be able to get, but man, Sam went huge with the Nano just to try and stall that out and at least allow a whole extra fight on top of it. Tiz guys does make a swap though over to the Brig, a little more self-sustain, as well as a more range healing to try and keep Rich and Sam up.
Yep, not basically a sitting duck now. You have one with the shield, so maybe you can survive a bit longer. But for here, they don't have that option. They'll find a nice headshot onto them. So Hydra has to translocate out early because of the healing they don't have access to. U10 looking to force their opponents into a small corridor to concentrate that damage down. You can't find that opening just yet. It's going to be there with a pulse bomb for UConn, however. Coming up with Noodles and Blamity to their name, flipping the point back over, and with these stalls coming in, it's gonna have to be one heck of one from Tennessee in order to keep this one going in overtime right now. They're looking for those shots to land, and yeah, Connecticut, they simply have control. You're coming up a Bolt Support Ultimate, and Noodles could get this Sal barrier, but they just are not gonna have that opportunity. And UConn gonna close out round number 1 of Oasis, putting it at match.
A nice little round there from UConn, even though the comp not really as much in their favor. Hydra just can't get enough done with the Somber. There was a nice few hacks, but not enough sustained value out of the Somber pick to really show that it was needed as Tennessee thought it would be. And UConn as well, getting a lot of value out of the Cassidy, is mainly playing a bodyguard for their support line just to make sure that Hydra and Ducksta stayed away, but now Hydra goes on to the signature tracer themselves. Ducksta flexes over to the Soldier, and you know, we heard Juno talking about it earlier. A lot of respect to Hydra, and I have a feeling we might see a reason and the reasoning behind that here on Gardens.
Yeah, after losing that last round, you want to put your best strengths forwards. I think Ducksta going to the Sojourn as well is going to be good to have this extra damage to kind of finish off these targets. That was something that Tennessee didn't really have. They got him low, just couldn't finish him off. So UConn are in for a bit of a tough time, but Hydra not off to a great start on the Tracer either. Sam is still running their hot streak from the previous round, putting them up an advantage. UConn, however, do not have that high ground access, so U10, they're just going to sit up there, wait until they find the opportunity, get their Tracer back, and hope that they're not knocked off by the Winston in the meantime. The point has been unlocked for playing this rather slow. Have to keep these sight lines in mind, but oh my gosh, Nels, that was certainly aggressive and almost paid for it. With their life, Yukon will get that first capture. Not something Tennessee wanted to give up. They don't have the choice and probably aren't going to take it back now with Dexter going down and Nels just looking ahead with the good old Carroll in the Wild West. And that is going to be the dust settles.
Tennessee just seem a little off. For whatever reason, they cannot seem to get the engine going here on these pushes. Duckster, yes, gets a lot of damage in, no finishing blows. Hydra is getting shut down pretty consistently by Nels and Sam. And because of that, Blamity doesn't really have any space or time to work with.
No, not at all. This re-engage is going to show exactly how that works out. Sam and Nels have been superstars for their team, and now you have to worry about a Nano Winston too. Rich going to be the one to shine. It is a trade out. Hydra starting to come alive, like we know that they can. Will be a flip over for Tennessee, despite losing Blamity, who hasn't had the best luck so far, but it is a-okay for them, and they're going to get control of this game.
52% for UConn, not too shabby. At least you draw off the Nano and the Primal Rage as well if you are Tennessee. Pulse Bomb still out there. Noodles does have the Somber if they need to, or just the Protection Suzu. They want to pop it nice and quick. But Ducksta, with this overclock, just try and put some more pressure on the Nels because they seem to have basically free reign in the mid-fight.
They certainly do. I mean, Deadeye could also buy a lot more of that space going out, but the focus is on the ultimate, on the Hydra. Lots of sustain to be able to walk up this point. And Nels wants to zone it out, but being poked at from the behind makes it not so easy. A lot of resources invested to keep him alive. And, you know, it's paying off. It's a distraction, gives Sam that room to do their job the best. UConn do get the flip back over, but Tennessee, they're still alive.
They are still alive and kicking. Blamithy's able to pick off his guys. Lamborghini not going to be able to do too much in this either. As the kills do go back Tennessee's way. It took a tiny bit of time, but actually Sam able to pick up two reinforcements coming in. Nelson one. It's a 1v1 on points, and it will not go. Oh, Nelson's going to back up, actually.
Nelson's got 10 HP. No, he's going back in. This guy's on maniac with 10 HP. Okay, that was kind of cool, though. How that patience from Tennessee, and you know what? It paid off. Just a little bit more time from Nels means that UConn, they're going to be back here. They're still in control of the point, which is absolutely ridiculous right now. And they do lose their Zenyatta and their Winston, though, so that brief control will get them pretty high in percentage, but they'll have to come back in order to finish that round off.
It gets them to a one fight win away from a stunning map one steal here away from the #1 team in the league. But hey, Tennessee, they got some weapons to work with. Pulse Bomb online, as well as the Primal Rage to try and stall out Kitsune Rush as well. UConn only has the Pulse Bomb of their own. Maybe a late Primal Rage if they need to get into a stall scenario, but the Pulse Bombs here will be the big factor.
We both know Hydra and Sam have the potential to use them, but Sam doesn't, you don't even get them now. So, and already, Tennessee, great advantage for them, and they're just going to easily close that one out. That's the dive setup we need to continue to see.
I feel all warm inside.
Only the one little ult used as well, not needing to use anymore. It's the perfect fight there for Tennessee. Yep. Now one fight remaining for both teams. Sound barrier and overclock now getting dangerously close here for UConn, and it may just be in this fight. I have a feeling it'll be all right. Sound barrier will be used later on. Both teams want to be aggressive but still passive. Maybe those later ults that decide the fight.
Kitsune to start it off with the initiation and the pulse bomb will strike true for Ducksta, but it does manage to get knelt for their own fall by themselves. So trade outs either side. Look at that advantage when we get to near 99% on both ends. Last fight to decide who will be taking away Gordon's, and right now it's looking like to be Tennessee as Blamity comes up with those final two eliminations. Only Rich is trying to sustain themselves by some time. Do not have those reinforcements available and keep them up. Sound barrier overclock. That shall do it for Gardens. It will once again be decided on University.
Going back to University for the decider, and Tennessee able just to hold on near the end. Definitely was not pretty back and forth during the beginning of that final fight, but it is the crucial pick on the Tiz guys. They die extremely early, left Lamborghini all alone, and at that point, Blamethy was on them. Like, they were just using Primal, batting them away, making sure that Sam and Nels were not able to get those heals that they crucially needed in the moment. And now, you go over to University, Connecticut trying to run, obviously, with your boy Wings not in the lineup right now, running the Ramatra in anticipation of the Rhino comp coming in from Tennessee.
Yeah, the Ramatra is always a decent counter to the Reinhardt. The shield does not matter to that hero, but also can be tricky just in terms of mobility. As we can see, Tennessee, they got Noodles on the Lucio. Nobody in sight like that for Connecticut, and this forces out that form. With Omnic form, you can't really get too much closer with the Nemesis. You need to force the armor out early, and it's just going to be a snowball from that point forward. Quite literally, because Hydra had an amazing wall to set that one up. May, and yeah, Tennessee coming out with a strong start once again.
Nice start. As you said, the May walls from Hydra. So even though, yes, they're definitely a Tracer player, they have a lot of great skills in that hero. The walls there is what made the difference.
Yep.
Tennessee now can play around this choke and the choke point that goes on the point extremely defensively, when Sam might have to just try and bait out the aggressiveness to try and wall off somebody.
I mean, the patience here from UConn. They have to be careful because these May walls are going to be important. Look at that one from Tennessee. They're stuck in a small room. Suzu already utilized. And Hydra has to play a little bit safer for the time being. Has the Ant Matrix to back them up. However, that's the Carolina though on the complete opposite flank to take that one down. And yeah, another efficient fight one from Tennessee.
Nice fight win there as well. Window used. As soon as the walls are like, hey, all right, there's no wall to try and deny the value from the Ant Matrix. And they're all stuck in that little room, so they either have to back up or push into this Ant Matrix, which UConn sit in the room. They eventually get poked down and have to hope that their Ant Matrix of their own can get the same value.
Amber Genie coming to work some magic out of the Ant Matrix. Will have an ice ball, but only there for a little bit of time. But it's a blizzard. It's gonna be a real killer. Couple pops, full scene in the blue color, and UConn once again are sent straight back to the spawn. And with Tennessee only using one ultimate.
Extremely clinical here from the Volunteers, and now especially one fight went away from stealing the map away from the Huskies when they thought they could have stolen it themselves. Nels has Deadeye, can use it to try and at least gain some space on the point. It does have the extra speed as well with the Kitsune Rush if they need.
Of the time on their side, and UConn, it's their fight to win. They have to do it now, but the Maywall is blocking their own Earth Shatter. No shot. That just happened. Limity falls. As a result, that is spelling disaster for Tennessee right now. They have 93% and counting up, so don't need to hold this on to this too much longer if they will think they can win it with their team, because UConn, they have the resources. Forcing them out is going to be it, but with the flip coming through and Noodles going down, you would assume they wouldn't want to re-engage, but the Maywall in the end of Rich, so they're going to throw everything they can back into this fight. Keep it going, keep it juiced up with the sleep onto Duxta. Makes that hard to follow up with. Connecticut, they're holding on strong, but Tennessee still don't really want to give this one up. Everything's coming out. Connecticut, they can't afford to lose this. It's on 99% for them if they go down, but the sound barrier perfectly timed from Noodles and the immortality field there too. The counterplay is amazing, and the Blizzard's even better. Hydra, huge May player, and even they didn't play trades, the flexibility is insane. The flip will come through, and Tennessee's perseverance will push them through to an Oasis map win.
Man, what a win here for Tennessee when it got a little bit scary there for a little bit. Like, hey, UConn's here to play, but it's almost very similar to the first match of the day. The top team going in gets a little bit scared, but able to clutch it out when it mattered, and this was just a beautiful Blizzard to start it off. Yeah. Hydra able to get two. Later on, and throwing it in the stairwell at that very final fight, able to catch his guys and Nels, who were just trying to get away, trying to wait out that sound barrier that was used to try and counter out the tire. It ended up actually countering out the Annihilation more because tire got blocked. So there was nothing, no shield, extra shield that was taken away. And instead, the Annihilation, all it was kind of just poking targets that were never going to die.
That's the thing with Ramatra nowadays. I mean, Ramatra is not good at one thing. He's just kind of okay at a lot of them. And when you're playing into a Reinhardt like that, it doesn't work out. You're going to get run over. There wasn't a lot of time that UConn were able to get in when they had the ultimates to do it. held on for a bit, but again, Tennessee, they did not let up. They're like, okay, this is winnable, this is winnable. They kept calling that, and look, it was winnable to Insulty. When even I was doubting, I'm like, is this really it? But you invest so much into an engagement, you better hope to get a return on it. They certainly did. Map 1 will go their way, and they begin to look towards the future, onto Blizzard World. We know that swaps are an option. We do have people that can be substituted in, but looking at the map ahead, is that really something that you would recommend?
I don't see it. I honestly don't see it happening unless there's a very weird swap that comes through, but I got a feeling we're not going to see any swaps. The Ramatra, it can work against the Ryan, but you have to be the aggressor. You can't play patiently. Go into Nemesis form. Use the pummel. The Ryan shield can't block the pummel. You can punch through the shield and force them to back up, but if you play a little bit hesitant like they did, then the Ryan can just take over the map, especially right now with the buffs that he's gotten in Season 3. It is very hard if you allow the Ryan to start playing that aggressive to stop that level of aggression in a timely manner, and UConn just never could. So Blizzard World could be, you know, the way they want to go. Rick is also a pretty big Sigma player, so especially on the defense, more of a poke angle could be the answer that UConn Huskies need.
The doors have been flung wide open for various compositions to appear. You can see more of a poke-oriented style, like you were referencing with the Sigma. Blizzard World is one of those maps that relies a lot on this high ground, on the specific open range that we can see. So I think it's going to depend on who's going to be setting that pace first. We did see a little bit of a dive, too, come out. I mean, that's not to say that can't appear once again. I mean, UConn, they won the map on it, you know, that's a good look from them, but they didn't do so hot the next one. Things to consider. There's a lot to be learned from the map of Oasis to apply moving forwards, but once you're making these changes, you have to be able to adjust on the fly. You can't simply be like, all right, this is gonna work, and if it doesn't work, I don't know what we're gonna do. Nope, you gotta think ahead by at least 10 steps, or make an attempt to, and what's funny about that, both teams have made significant changes to their lineups.
Yeah, UConn running Rick on the Sigma. It's not a huge surprise to see Rich on the Sigma. We've seen them a lot on, especially, you know, on Circle Royale when that came up during previous series. So not a huge shock to see them on the Sig. Nels as well going on the Cassie. That was a big reason why they were able to win a lot of the fights they did on Oasis. Tennessee, on the other hand, going this ball dive that we saw a lot of in our previous matchup, but Duckstuff actually going on the Ash.
Okay. And hey, I can see this work. I mean, the Ash is kind of in place of a Sojourn, you would kind of assume. You could, of course, have a Sombra come back up, but with that not working for Tennessee, I see why they don't want to run it. Hydra's just better on the Tracer. Not going to do anything this time, because Rich just punched him into the ground. But, you know, playing towards the strengths of Tennessee, playing that range. They're taking it very slow.
Extremely slow, because they know they have to have a perfect execution of the dive to try and make sure they can at least force Lamborghini off this high ground. With Hydra just coming back from spawn, it'll take a little bit. Now Paravir as well, hit with the bio nade, will have to wait a little bit longer.
Oh yeah, patience is key, but hey, you get that knock off the high ground. That's the positioning force you want it. So Hydra can engage on that point with Legacy, but neither have too much health to work with. And end up losing Hydra, but that's enough space for Ducksta to work with. Come up with elimination of their own. You'll be S-line for UConn. They're gonna have to rally behind the Sigma shield just to kind of hold this one down. That's one thing Sigma can offer is some stability here. You don't have to constantly running around, but the supports also have to deal with that. You got the Brig and Ana working together to keep the hamster out of their face. And meanwhile, their Sigma's not having a great time. They're getting pressured. Alt will eventually go down with 5 assists on that elimination. It was a nice stall, but yeah, Tennessee, they're playing the faster game, and Connecticut couldn't keep up.
They could just never get back in the position that they really needed to work around, because Tennessee made sure, especially Legacy, was like, hey, we're making sure you're not going to get that space. You don't get a choice. Like, you are not able to dive in like you want, and the fact that, you know, they put Legacy in for a very clear reason, to play the ball, Blamethine not as comfortable on it, so Tennessee know fully that that is the comp they want to run throughout the entirety of this map. And so far, we can definitely see why. And Bob could be used early here just to contest point when UConn try and play that high ground.
Yeah. And they got Bob here along with 5 other or 4 other ultimates. I can't do math, my apologies. But that's basically, it's a big number. Big number is what we're looking at from both sides. UConn have 4 up of their own to kind of pull this one out. I'm looking primarily at those support ultimates here to help initiate this and just hold on to the positioning that they currently have. Though Sigma's not with them, so they have to battle through a minefield, and Bob Owen, they're lonesome. And with his guys going down, you're not going to have that rally either. There goes the other support. Perfectly played by Tennessee, taking that out of their hands, or rather Hydra, coming up with all of those final blows, and this Pale is going to be on a roll.
They try and throw the nano there on from UConn onto Sam just to keep them up, seeing that, hey, maybe they can bring this back, but not able to enough. He swaps, or at least kind of teased his guys, goes on to the break, but at this point, all the high ground, Paravir is just chilling up here, no need to try and worry about anything, and this part will just continue to roll on through.
So we're going to get the recontest, might as well, with the Gravitic swaps, but sentence there, and not too much. They got the Molten Core. Big commitment from Connecticut to attempt to recontest, and it's working out because Nelsey finally come back alive. From round number 1 comes up with 4. I'm sorry. But yeah, that's the Cassidy player we know and love.
Able to save them there. They had to use almost everything, though, or everything, honestly. Lamborghini might get close to a nano, depending on how long this mid-fight goes, and the swaps actually come through now for the counter dive. Sam going back over to the Tracer, Rich onto the Winston to try and put more pressure on the Noodles and Paravir, who at this point haven't really had to deal with any pressure from UConn.
And I'm curious how that's going to affect Tennessee's gameplay here, because that means Duxa, Legacy, and Hydra are going to have nearly as much support. And I mean, hey, Nelsey just hits shots off the toolboard, much more consistent on the Cassidy. A great way to start it out with an early elimination. And still looking to follow up on the dives. Just a little bit too aggressive, but a huge Biomaze set it up. Rich heads it straight back in, looking for this Zenyatta, but nice peel from Noodle. Keep them up, entering with that nano. They just really find anything with this, though. Everybody kind of moves around, gets whip shot, and that's about the end of that ultimate. It's been very, very scrappy. Or it's been taking all 10 players are up and fighting at this point in time, and specifically that Winston looking for Noodles will snag them down for the majority of the healing. Now present for Tennessee. You know, that you can't really say that said the other way, but Sam is there to clean it up along with Nels, and we will see the Pale and Hall after a very scrappy skirmish.
A very long and scrappy skirmish that was. There's the battle of the high ground, and it's just back and forth, but it seemed like Tennessee could never really fully gain control. Noodles and Paravir were kind of just patiently waiting for the space to be created, but Rich made sure they consistently jumped up there, and when they jumped up, Sam tried to flank around as well. So now a minute left, they have the minefield to try and just deny that pressure on the car, and the pulse bomb to try and get that opening pickoff. Rally in the back pocket if they need it for the second half of a fight.
Yep, and I think it's going to be kind of when we get to this mid-fight that those ultimates are going to become more important. The pressure is there on the payload. Nobody's going to be touching. There's the minefield up over the top. Nice link. Let's go through. Oh, okay. Oh, we're okay. We're safe. That payload will not be going through just quite yet, but look how low Tennessee was. They almost got that cart through, but still 30 seconds left. It's another chance, but not a lot of time to get there.
And they committed a lot during that. Paravir tries to pop the Transcendence to make sure Legacy can stay alive, but they get hit with the Bionade, so they have to try and retreat. They're eventually finished off before they can do anything. Duxta, only ultimate available here for Tennessee with the Bob. UConn will have that nano to put on the Rich for more pressure onto that back line.
That nano is going to be big. Rich can work magic with this here because Noodles and Paravir, they got nothing to really keep them alive if that monkey decides to leave. Now it's going to be the Bob adding a 6th member to their team and get 2 guys down. So it has to be the nano boost from Lamborghini to keep the Winston alive. Looking to pressure the back line with the DPS, and it's exactly what needed to happen. This is by far the best both UConn have showed, and once again the payload is going to be stopping here just shy of the 2nd point of Blizzard World. Nice recovery from Connecticut, made the proper switches to give them a chance of winning this one out.
I feel a little bit of deja vu here, Tiny. It
I do.
feels
I
like
was
this
thinking
is
the same
exactly
thing.
how the first series of the day went, to where the top team, you know, has a little bit of a struggle there in the first map, eventually able to win it on University, and then first attack here on Blizzard World, almost the exact placement of where that cart ended. So I don't know, Tennessee and Delaware maybe taking a little bit too many notes on each other, but UConn, as you said, the right swaps were made. I like the Winston swap, put a lot more pressure on the Paravir Noodles. Sam was always there on those dives as well. And Nels, when they're hitting the shots like they are, they can play a little bit farther back and wait for Tennessee to try and counter out that aggression with their own. And that time around, it worked out pretty nice.
I love that this has been their best look so far. This is what they won their map on on Oasis with. Was with this exact composition. We can see why. You have all of your bases essentially covered here, and this is Sam and Nels. This is their comfort zone. That's pretty obvious. We didn't see too much from them back when they were on the Torbjorn summer comp. Now this is where they're shining. They're really coming through here. But now that the sides have flipped, I think Tennessee, they're gonna have more of an opportunity to get the setup that they've been struggling to find before. And Connecticut, they might have to change their playstyle as a result.
I'm curious, especially if UConn win this first fight right away, what changes Tennessee feel they need to make. Because right now, as you said, staying the exact same. No changes to be made, but I wonder if it's one bad fight that'll force that swap to come out. Is everybody's just playing into the building of Flight of Duskwood. And at this point, now starting to rotate back over to that back high ground.
All right, so you give the point away for free. So everyone's on the objective now, which is often the tricky part of Blizzard World, believe it or not. So I guess we fight on the point for the first time. Hey, it's working out pretty well, but it's actually a nice dynamite onto 2 pile driving discords coming in handy for the assist. And all right, I'm sorry I ever doubted you, Tennessee.
Yeah, I was like, all right. When they can land these quick fights, they don't need to sustain. As long as they have, hey, Discord Orb, as shots come on through. Sam, Mike, hey, Mike gets staggered. Nice little break back there to keep them up. Now Hydra's in a bad spot.
No!
They'll actually get staggered. No, they won't. They'll live.
Oh, they live and Sam goes down on an exciting end of that Tracer 1v1 is not really 1v1. There's more persistence from the team at the end there, but not having Sam in the fights, nobody's really gonna okay, no, we're gonna leap in. Never mind, Rich. I don't care about what I'm saying. And just full sends it up to the high ground. Really only the wrecking ball to greet him though. So making the longer rotation back up around the side of the point. We can tell they want to contest that high ground, right? They want to get up there, but the coach gun and whip shot denied them both. And bye-bye, monkey. We will see you next time around. The rest of the team of UConn, they're just kind of chilling right now, hoping that nobody engages. But we know very well Tennessee will get right in the mix, make this one a little difficult for them. So UConn gonna get their tank back in.
It is the similar issue like, hey, they're trying to figure out how they want to contest that back high ground. As you said, instead of the coach gun being used from Duxta or the whip shot from Noodles that just denies the dives coming on through. So if you can avoid that, then it's the setup UConn needs. But for now, it may just have to be the patience game for Tennessee to make a mistake.
We're looking for that to come up. I mean, hey, Connecticut, they're moving to a different spot. Taking play out of that book, but once again, the coach gun in the whip shot. Lovely denial of this, especially with that Bionade coming through that expires just in time before the Winston gets there. But Rich and Nels have already done the damage that lack of healing required. Duxta does have the Bob online, will not be using it, which turns them into a pancake. And eventually, UConn will find that little room to work with and take it as the first point capture.
Oh, it's just, that is a perfect Bionade from Lamborghini. Able to hit 4 members on high ground. They can't get aggressive like they would have wanted to in that fight, like they were preparing to. Instead, they have to play very safe. The dive comes on through. They keep the primal. Rally will be online. And they at least have a lot of ultimates to use because the Bionade had the same effect of an ultimate in winning them that fight.
It was actually great. I mean, that's the thing with Ana. If you don't have a Kiriko either, usually you would expect it to be negated, but no, I don't have to work that. Not to mention that UConn, they're still coming in with 4 ults, only having to use the nano boost there. So it's a good fight for them. If you weren't looking at the 4 on set Tennessee, you can essentially match that coming through. Controlling the high ground is going to be the name of the game as Nelson and Duxta exchange shots from this point forward. So once he reaches corner, I'm expecting Rich to leap on up there again, but isn't going to be denied this time. So gets to go in. Look at that one again on the 3. Forces the transcendence. The rally is removed. Great play from Connecticut to shut that one down, but Rich takes way too much damage to be able to sustain through that. Both the port ultimates are out of the fight, but now there goes the rest of UConn. Don't have that tank to rally behind. Tennessee, hold this high.
Man, that was almost the perfect setup there for UConn. The Bionade again goes through. Noodles tries to pop the rally just to build up enough armor health to live through, but the stick with the Pulse Bomb just does enough, but honestly, Duxtas has been keeping them in a lot of these fights. The constant dynamite damage and the finishing blows with Discord Orb have been plaguing Connecticut, trying to finish off these fights, and they'll have to rotate over towards turret side to at least try and contest this high ground more directly.
Look at that contest, but look how low the Winston goes. The amount of damage Juxta just did is absolutely insane. And Bob and Minefield basically in the same corner. There goes Bam. A big commitment from Tennessee, and still the leap in with the Nano Winston, trying to turn this back. He did leave here as Miata high and dry. Noodles will return to keep them out. Nice peel from Tennessee and UConn. They're not going to really have the sustain to keep this one up, only building ult charge at this point because they just used a lot to get to that point and didn't gain it.
Nothing to gain other than time lost. 1.5 minutes remaining. Nelson, nice little pick off there early on the Hydra. Legacy is very low as well. Slup, they're taken out as well. Could be the opening here for the Huskies.
All right, Nels, we see you. Just has these pop-off moments out of seemingly nowhere. Hey, that's what you need from your Cassidy player because this payload's getting really close. One fight win is all you can need to turn this around. And also the Deadeye makes it difficult to touch. It has to be the Wrecking Ball store in. It's a good chunk of damage from that ultimate, however. It's gonna be the rotation. You got Hydra with that pulse bomb. If they find that target, isn't gonna get the stick or the elimination necessary. So it's gonna be Dux's turn here momentarily. And Bobber has been unleashed and Nels has fallen over. Tennessee, this is an important fight for them to win. And UConn, they gotta save their resources, but no, the rally has been unleashed, Salty. They want to fight this one out. They're hoping they can hold on. There's the grapple range too. Everything being seeped in. 40 seconds remaining. Aren't even gonna bother taking another chance. They're gonna end it right here and right now, so that they are a team to be reckoned with. And Legacy, they just gotta sustain. They're doing their best, but their health is dwindling. To rely, Noodles comes back in with the rally. That's basically it here. Connecticut, they are going to put themselves up a map in this series against the #1 team in the EGFC.
Wow, UConn. I was questioning the aggression there for a minute. Because as you said, there was a lot that went into that fight. But as soon as they popped the like, no, we're just going to finish this. We're going to catch them off guard. Exactly what they were able to do. Tennessee did not expect the counter engage that quickly, and Nels, man, the unsung hero of this team a lot of the time.
Yeah.
3 headshots there to finish it off. But we got a series tiny in a matchup. You know, if you look at it on paper, UConn 4-9, Tennessee 12-1. This should not be, at least on paper, as close as it is. But again, UConn's been a team where it's either they're hot or they're not. And tonight, they're definitely more on the hotter side.
Oh yeah, they're giving Tennessee a run for their money, and I certainly think there'll be some discussing going on as we head to our halftime intermission, so don't go anywhere. We got so much more Overwatch to be played. We are back once again in the beautiful streets of Esperanza for map number 3. UConn has surprised us by taking a map off of Tennessee in Blizzard World. Now, we need to see now that they're tied up. Can they continue that streak forwards on our push map?
No surprise, no swaps. You might as well keep the hot guys in for UConn. Legacy will stay in, so we will not see Blamathy. So that means we will be sticking to this ball comp for Tennessee. But it will be Duxton now over to the Cassidy, realizing they need to match what Nels was running just because of how well it works. So the only difference being Perimeter staying on the Zen for the more focus fire, while Lamborghini focusing more on that counterplay with the Ana.
More counterplay, more sustain, more healing, as you could put it. With it is. Tennessee essentially, they're more self-sustainable with the Wrecking Ball. They don't need that burst healing as much, but they also need to focus fights out much quicker because if they gave Lamborghini, Nelsie, and Sam, really the whole roster room to work, they're going to be in a whole heap of trouble here. So we get to see our first skirmish kind of happening out on these little bridge. Nobody's taking too many steps forward. We'll see Rich contesting the robot kind of just on mid, but yeah, no risky play here. We're playing it safe. We're thinking what we're doing before we act, which is a good thing to have. Not acting entirely on impulsiveness. Not taking a step forwards, though. Means this has been a minute without really significant close tilts.
Yeah, honestly, it's been like, oh, we'll poke a little bit here and there. Everybody's just trying to hold their position. The spot's slowly creeping its way towards the Tennessee side, but honestly, not much is happening.
No, nobody's doing much. I'm getting a little reminiscent of that one. I believe it was the Shock of the Fuel back on Coliseum, where it was just the longest stalemate kind of out there. It's what we're feeling on these runs. You don't see it on this map very often. Usually they're pretty cut and dry, but this is just patience at its finest, but finally something happens. Whoa, we like action. Nelsie doesn't like that action, though, so down to Cassidy player, UConn will find themselves in Tennessee, and they get a little bit more aggressive with that pile drive. Sets them up nicely. Need a bit more of a follow through. We're still kind of in the poking phase, regardless of someone comes down. So the ultimates are out, and so is that poke bomb. Nice elimination. Both supports are gone. Finally, a decisive fight win will go the way, but oh my goodness, another pulse bomb to kill feed. Sam struck it right back. The Connecticut, the door hasn't been slammed in their face just yet. They can continue to stall it out as the robot hasn't moved anywhere, but Nelsie going down will just about be the end of that as we are well over 2 minutes into this.
This, man, what, 2 minutes straight I'm just playing near mid, and eventually it's UTK able to pull on through. It's because Noodle is able to stay alive, but because of how long that fight went, UConn are raring to go here on a very quick recontest.
They're looking to get in. Nels, I'm sorry, I said your name wrong earlier. Nels has the Deadeye. Not looking to hold on to that. Positioning in favor of Tennessee. They got the bridge control, and now they're going to have even more of it with the minefield being laid down. So you just had to get Rich aggressive. There was no way to back out. Your supports are gone. And several actually ended up being used on both sides just to get, or actually really just for Tennessee to get it forwards, and that's just all right with them.
Yeah, completely fine with them. Like, hey, we wouldn't have fight. The spot should get eerily close to that first tick. But UConn able to get back early here. Nels has that Deadeye if they want to try and pop it here on that balcony just to deny some space, stall it out, and allow the rest of their team to come back into the fray with that rally.
We got the rally up. Likely going to be initiative here. We'll have to use them a little later once that's built up. But right now, UConn really need to contest with Swans coming so close. That checkpoint would be huge. They are going to get that contest, but everybody else from Tennessee is forced pretty far back as a result of an angry monkey man. Still going to jump back up with rather low health. Pretty gutsy to go with, but I guess use the nano in the back pocket. Never mind. Yeah, nano's gone. Right away by Dexter, another one to follow it up, and Tennessee's DPS line is going ballistic.
Too early to kick.
Just Duxter like, hey, okay, I know this Cassidy, I haven't been playing it too much, but definitely showing that they are still willing to throw it out. Nels never even used the Deadeye, was never in a position to use it. Now Tennessee, yes, they had to use both the support ults that fight, but they do have that pulse bomb back online. Now it's his guys making the swap over to the Zen themselves. Rich over to the Sigma, some more of a poke coming in. I don't know. I'm mixed on this because you can play the long range, but it's a big risk.
Big risk to go with a slightly less one with Duxta hitting that Bionade down. And all right, UConn, they're playing the range and they're making it work. But I do question how much of that is the element of surprise here. They'll have control of the robot, but Tennessee can take this fight quick.
Exactly, because they have those spawns though. Hydra's trying to get out. They almost get Salmon. They at least forced the recall early. But Nana was used there as well, so it's just Deadeye for UConn. There's nothing else. Tennessee getting already here on the top right side of the map to go in.
Gearing up, waiting for that time, but I mean, Rich does offer a decent amount of scope hold advantage. You can do that, but then you're also leaving your support high and dry. I'm not even sure how his guys ended up all the way back there by himself. Just free picking for Tennessee. They'll take that at the minefield, aren't going to need it, though. A lot of pressure on the Lamborghini, knowing that we're practically in the fight. There it is. UConn, they're going to push this as far as they can, but will inevitably have to reset.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it's his guys left all alone back there. Everybody else rotated to the opposing bridge side, but his guys are just left all alone there towards their side of bridge, and you can tell UTK was like, oh, they're all alone. All right, easy dive, pile drive, Tracer to follow up, and that is a nice free fight win there for the Volunteers. They may be able to regain the forward spawns here, and they will, and now Duxta has the Deadeye and the personal shield of Noodles to make sure that nothing happens to him.
Whole lot to go for Tennessee in this fight, and UConn, I cannot say the same for them. You got the Deadeye from Nels early, but okay. Two managed to go down. Rich will be caught out by the minefield, though, so not a lot of reason to peek around the corner, which can be hard for UConn, as they still have a fight to win. Kind of pick out the high ground is still occupied by UTK. They'll have to get up there. They're not getting the chance with Legacy, putting that pressure on it to the Cassidy and Paravir in the back line. Yes, they're going to buy some time, but the spawns are still inactive, and Tennessee, they're at an advantage.
Just holding on the high ground, now can pop the rally early just to make sure they can all go in at full strength. Paravir actually needs to play a little safe, but it's Legacy able to get that first pick on the same plane a little too aggressive.
Yeah, you're actually punished for aggression, which is a rare occurrence for that player at times, not having that. You got the Gravitic Flux, that one completely ends up going wide for Mayan. Actually, no, it didn't catch Noodles, my bad, but hey, you don't have a support line in third place, so it doesn't seem to matter. Tennessee are going to have to forfeit this one, as UConn just need to cancel these forward spawns.
Well, for Tennessee, it's like you stalled here for a good extra minute or so, and you still have that Transcendence if you needed to try and deal with the Pulse One from Sam, who has not been able to use it quite yet. So not a horrible fight there for Tennessee. Minefield soon up as well. Lamborghini, though, does have this aim matrix. You can line it up with Nelsta, able to build that Deadeye up, and then the quick fire for the ult.
We know how good Nels is with this Cassidy. Give him double damage. Who knows what's going to happen with that? But they also don't have the high ground, and neither Kiss guys. That's the second time that Kiss guys have been caught out by themselves, way off in the back. And pretty critical error for UConn, because they got to fight this one out at the 4. The Matrix and Deadeye are there. Neither are going to get anything done, though. They just don't have that sustain with the extra support. They got to be sticking together. They got to hold hands, basically, because now you're going to find yourselves having to come back in.
It's just this back and forth that Tennessee are going to always be okay with. Like, hey, if we lose a fight, we win a fight. And as long as they keep that trade going, it will go in their favor because they have a decent 25-meter plus tick lead over the Huskies. And now Sam, giving up on the Tracer, will go full poke. Now going over to that Soldier, which will make, I admit, Legacy's life a little bit harder, but Paravir's a little easier.
A lot less pressure on a Paravir, and even Hydra. That Hydra has a lot more freedom to kind of roam around on the Tracer and not worry about being caught out by Sam. But okay, I think Duxta is certainly more concerned about that. I think that extra damage, extra hit scam power is going to be great for them. But if they can continue to find those targets to focus down, the minefield puts a nice wedge in between UConn's setup, and it gives Hydra a chance to grab Samo off the back of it. Transcendence and rally aggressively forwards here, as UConn, they don't have a choice but to forfeit this space. They're going to have to come back in with something else to do with reaching those final 40 seconds, and the longer this goes on, the worse it is for UConn.
And Tennessee get all of this free real estate as well for the bot. It should get at least close to that 100-meter mark before UConn are at least able to contest. The thing here for UConn, you can't use too much because you're going to need to win consecutive fights afterwards, but it has to be a big flux, I think, here from Rich early to try and set everything up.
And Rich has this perfectly set up for them, no support ultimate, to really counter it out. Rabbinic Flux has to be the hero of this fight. Begin his push, pressure on the robot, guaranteeing that stick, but gets incredibly low and has to fall back. Hope the Deadeye can get something, but everybody's chilling back behind a corner. Going to peek it out, but they end up losing their Soldier 76. UConn not looking too hot. The payload is on the move. Rabbinic Flux out, but it's not going to do nearly as much as with Glitch. The positioning is just terribly awful for Connecticut. Tennessee, they play that so well, giving up the time, giving up the space. Couple last signs of fight from Connecticut, but it is not enough, as Tennessee will retake back their lead and put themselves back up at a match point. I mean, hey, I need to stop saying this before they happen, because whenever they do happen, it appears that Connecticut have returned with the numbers to keep this one alive for one more, but they've just scrapped so much together last second, they don't have momentum on their side.
They do have Attack Visor, though, with no direct answer here from the Volunteers, which could allow them to build that beat and Deadeye later, so it is still alive for the Huskies, but obviously that overtime ticker will fall extremely fast if somebody gets off that point. It'll just be playing their lives and playing around that point, but a crucial first pick.
Wait a minute, is this the run back we've been looking for? No support, and Sam just gets stuck under the bridge, unable to continue. First tick mark is up in their sights, but there is nobody else to keep the ball rolling. Yeah, I mean, the ball is kind of rolling, but Rich's certainly is not the rally up there. Last stand for UConn, as Tennessee will eventually take that one away.
Man, I feel bad for Sam. I have a feeling they were just trying to hold on to it. They get that opening pick thinking, hey, we may not have to use it. But in the long run, they would have needed it because they get picked off early. Rest of the fight just goes Tennessee's way. And Ducksta, I think, turned it on this Cassidy. Has not been the greatest series from them. We've seen, you know, the pop-offs on Ash, but it was not as consistent as they would have needed. But on the Cassidy, always the value there. It was not, hey, they're going to pop off here and there to keep them alive. It is every single fight. They are getting the value that is needed to keep their team in it. And as we look towards Dorado, we could see more of that Ash play from them because it is honestly Ash's playground.
Great spot for any sniper to set up those long, narrow street pathways, the high ground that's nearly untouchable by so many heroes. It's absolutely beautiful for those sniper players. It's your playground. Makes it happy. But, you know, thinking about how this has been played out so far, it seems like it's been a game centered around speed, almost. Who's controlling the tempo? The faster composition typically has been the one to come out on top. And when we've seen Connecticut's thrive, it's been on that Winston. And Esperanza, they went for it. They gave it a shot, just couldn't pull it together in time. It's much more open for them. It's easier for their opponents to collapse on their backline. Now, when you're put in a phase such as Dorado, Escort, their set defense, set attack. And I personally think that's going to benefit Connecticut quite a bit, similar to how they played on Blizzard World.
I think we will see very similar comps than we did on Blizzard World, because it is so similar, especially in the beginning of this map, to where, you know, at the very end of Blizzard World, you have that dominant high ground. You have that here on the defense as well. You can hold on to that for so long. And I have a feeling, you know, let's just say UTK starts on the defense. If they do, the ball can just run around, continue to cause chaos when they've been wanting to run that Zen anyways. The Zen can just sit stress-free on that high ground with Noodles as their bodyguard, as well as the Ash just popping the shots. So this could be the dream setup here for Tennessee to try and avoid, you know, a map 5 to where it's Ilios. You didn't look superb on Oasis. You pushed it all the way to round 3. You don't want to risk going to that map 5 where the Huskies could have all the momentum.
Nope, don't give it to them at all. Especially as we're looking into this, momentum plays a huge part in the game of Overwatch simply because of the mentality factor of the game, how you're thinking about it. I mean, Connecticut, it wasn't their best that was shown on Esperanza. You can't be too upset about it either. This map gives them a much better chance at success, and I'm not surprised by their defensive setup whatsoever. This is their confidence, this is their strength, and if this works, we might as well see that map 5.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Exactly. Blemethy is back in on the Winston. So instead, not wanting to run the ball comp here for Tennessee, will be Blemethy going in to play the Winston with Hydra on the Genji's. A little bit of Nanoblade action here, potentially for UTK. Depends if they want to use the Nano on Blemethy just to build up Primal, or Hydra for that Nanoblade.
I don't see where that's support. I mean, this Wartime's quite intriguing, I have to say, especially because Noodles is on the Mercy. We haven't seen much of Mercy today. That gives so much enabling power to Duxta, the Sojourn, and really take care of Nels, but Hydra is still one to be quite concerned about with the Genji. Seeing the payload stalled at the midpoint of this initial street, the Fervier Knights flank on, denied that flank from Sam, so everyone else will shooting it back up, pushing Yukon back, force the hold closer to the choke.
And it's just Hydra every single time they try and get comfortable. Dive in, use the deflect, and then just get away. Just causing Connecticut to not feel comfortable up there. And now they have to back up. His guys are taken out early as well by Duxta.
Yeah, taken out early. Tennessee with a late collapse onto that. Rich did come back into the fight a little bit late, and it's just even more of a stagger and could even get Tennessee this first point.
They will be able to earn first point. Nobody from the Huskies able to touch. And that is the perfect start here for Tennessee. Just the consistent up and down dive. Hydra just poked, then Blemethy pokes. And Duxta able to find those who get a little bit weakened, not healed up right away. And with that Mercy damage boost, able to finish them off. So now they're going to try and rotate all the way around so they can give Duxta that crucial high ground.
This is great from Duxta. Been a little quiet in the kill feed, but a lot of potential to grow. And then pretty fire too, but you can't do much if Rich is out of your sight line. I'd be yelling at my tank player for that one, but Blemethy is not making it easy for him, knocking everybody out of their original spots. Tennessee are going to close that one out by the looks of it. Getting control of this high ground here is going to be absolutely massive.
And even though they weren't pushing cart for a lot of this, gaining that high ground is so crucial.
Yep.
Because now Duxta has free reign. Blemethy can contest that high ground as well. And even Paraveer is up there. Now, yeah, Bionade comes through. Rich is, barely able to get out there. Like maybe 20 health to their name. But it gives them so much real estate. So no, you kind of have to be the ones that are pressuring for that high ground to even get set up for their Cassidy or for their Ana.
It's such a disadvantage when you kind of have to be the ones to contest. They have to use his ultimates to even get up there, but they end up losing. Sam was looking for that pulse bomb because Duxta's got a pocket, got an overclock. And a lot of their name in the kill feed, coming up with 3, looking for another one. They will go ahead and get that nice 4K for the Sojourn player in University of Tennessee. They found their momentum.
They found it when they crucially need it, and it will be the Nano Blade potentially here to finish off second phase. UConn have the data. They can just use it to time out the Blade if needed. That or the Rally if they want to use it later on.
Have options to their name, but the Dragon Blade, that Nano Blade is going to be the name of the game right here. But the Deadeye completely destroys it. Somehow Nels managed to stay alive with all the support, all the Rally armor. My goodness. Tennessee, they thought they were going to win that. They're winning combo right there, and even the Valkyrie now. I mean, it still is winnable. You got Duxta out in the high ground, but I hope you don't engage at this point. Stick in that poke phase.
Just play it safe for a few seconds. Now Blemethy jumping back on the high ground. Hydra ran back from spawn. You still have the advantage now that they are back in play, and now you can re-aggress.
You have the time, and Tennessee, they're looking to close it. Just a couple more meters is all they need to do it, but they're not going to have Hydra to assist them. Nice trade out for Lamborghini. You will 100% take that, because now Rich is pressured to finish this fight much, much quicker. And Blemethy is going to make his guys and Nels's lives miserable. In the meantime, still to play close on the card. They're not going to have Rich to help sustain. Duxta's back in the high ground in that deadly position for a Sojourn player. And will be University of Tennessee's saving grace, coming up with another triple kill and a 4th on top of it. Man, they must have heard what you said about their ass, because their Sojourn is on fire.
Even with, you know, the slight nerf that they got with, you know, their hitbox for the torso getting enlarged a little bit, they're lighting up the shots. That is no pressure on them. Sam going over to the Hanzo, playing a little bit more of a range game, and the Storm Arrows to try and break the Blamity bubble when they dive on in. But it is going to be a very tall order. Nano in early.
And Nano in early, and there goes Paravir. And I guess that's how you play the Hanzo, and people are trying to approach high ground. You easily cut them off in this small choke. Rich does pay for it with their life, but Sam's still locking this down, launching those arrows in there. Call it luck, call it skill, but Tennessee's down 2.
UConn able to stabilize, only the 1 nano, builds up the primal. They still have the rally as well if they want to use it early, because Hydra nowhere near that blade. They don't have to worry about that or the Deadeye to try and counter that out. But Duckstone, with the way they're hitting shots, Silverclaw could be a game changer.
Particularly if you get them on the high ground, which in Tennessee they're considering their options to try to push up. Well, they got Hydra and Blamity. Low pressure that height. Everyone else rotates, and that's what you need. Just tornado. They'll come up with right on Hydra, but Hydra comes up with 3 regardless. Blamity with another, and Tennessee definitely won the game of speed.
Nice little nano on the Genji. Yeah, you don't need the blade all the time. You get, you know, the nano, the damage boost as well. It's a lot of resources going in, but his guys have to swap over to the Kiriko now because the rally was used just to make sure they can get to this fight quick.
It's not good. They want to be quick, but they're waiting for the Deadeye to come up with something, but that will expire. Rich does have that primal rage to add more sustain to this, but Dirksen has the ultimate to end it all now, and the Dragon Blade. Yeah, this is Tennessee's fight to win. Everything in their favor, and they will complete Dorado with 1:33 on the clock. Just a rather consistent run through the map of Dorado.
Very consistent from Tennessee. They knew exactly what they needed to do. Gain high ground control on second phase. On third phase, just try and play the poke game. Be very aggressive when they need to. But as soon as they punch that ticket, they need to make sure they commit, and that's exactly what they were able to do. And now UConn got a very tough task ahead of them just to make sure we can go to an overtime here on map 4, as Tennessee seemed very comfortable now with Blamity back in the lineup. Even though they were out for 2 maps, it does not seem like they're cold whatsoever.
Oh, no, not at all. Tennessee, they're keeping themselves nice and fresh as they transition over to the defense. And actually, we do get to see something different. Hydra's gonna be on the Hanzo instead of the Tracer. We've seen a lot from Hydra today, but the Archer isn't one of them.
Yeah, we've seen the Genji, the Tracer, the Sombra as well, but we'll be going out with the Hanzo. Play more defensively, anticipating Connecticut will be running a very similar setup. With the dive, it's Nels actually, instead of Sam on the Genji to start out. I think Sam's Genji play was more of just a direct counter. Nels maybe wasn't comfortable in that moment giving up that ult charge they had on the Cassidy, so I don't mind the swap if both are comfortable on the heroes. Why not give it to maybe the more hot hand in Sam when Nels can try and challenge. Well, they thought maybe the Genji mirror, but instead it would be Hydra and Duckstuff on this double long range look.
I mean, you could even argue that Hydra is easier to eliminate on a Hanzo than a Genji, but a lot of potential damage to be outputted, but it's rather random, which is always a risk to be considered when you're approaching a Hanzo. Early sleep on the Rich, though. That's been happening a lot. Paravir has been on point since we've seen this Ana come out from them. Cooldown cycle incredibly well onto the main tank. And that's what you gotta do. You protect your Ana, you protect your Hanzo up on the high ground. Give them to room to hit the shots, because they certainly will. Like that from Paravir, working it up, and eventually he drops to clean up the fight. Nels does manage to snag the Hanzo off of the back of it, which could hurt a little bit later on, but the resurrection's there. Tennessee holding strong.
Minute gone, UConn is struggling to try and gain anything. Blamity playing that close high ground, knocks him back up. That cart will eventually start to get going, but they have to find a way to consistently pressure Ducksta and Hydra up here, who are just living life to the fullest.
Oh yeah, they be chilling, dude. And hey, look, there's a Winston. You and sightseeing. Oh no, there's no more Winston. Took them out of the picture. And Paravir, though, that's actually a nice pick from Nels. Be able to get the Ana player back, but if you get the resurrection up, then there's no really point in extending that forward. UConn have pushed the payload to a position where Tennessee has to contest it. So we're gonna see Blamity kind of vibing on the little red truck. Keep it up. They don't have their Ana yet. initiate. Eventually, they will have that nano boost applied to them, jumping in. Grab Lamborghini, grab Nels too. And yeah, that's going to be Tennessee controlling that positioning. They held rock solid there, didn't let that payload scare them.
And only the nano used as well. They didn't have to use very much. They just made sure they stayed together, called out the dives that went in, and the beautiful peel that came through as well. Nels struggling to get a lot done, because even when they get the one pick, the res is there. They're not able to cover it because they need to back up to make sure they heal up for the second half of the fight. So UConn now half the time being gone. Now some of these ultimates will be coming into play.
And you know what I'm looking at? I'm looking at a classic Nano Blade. Today, if Nels stays alive, how do you get the Nano just for that? You have to force it out regardless, and it's not in the right position, but Nels still makes it work. Finds one, finds two. Dashing through. Great. That's that ultimate, but they have to, once they punch that ticket, they gotta finish it out, like you said, and there's one of them gone. Soldier's return, Ducksta, and then overclock. That can be key into turning this around, but Noodles ends up going down. Ducksta, it's all on their shoulders to flip it back. Damn, and they got another one. These headshots are coming in crazy from the Sojourn player. So consistent, so ridiculous on this map alone. And Tennessee, they're going to hold strong. 3 minutes gone, 1 minute remaining for Connecticut to make something happen.
Tennessee threw a lot at that though. Rich is left right now, and that's a stagger on to Nels, so UConn may have to wait a little bit longer, but it will be Sam who has that Deadeye, can create some space and just deny the dive coming in from Tennessee if needed. Later on as well, that Primal Rage just to make sure they can stall it out, but Tennessee, 1, maybe 2 fights left if they need it.
They're gonna have to take everything they can out of the remaining time bank. They've lost so much, just attempting to get forward, but to clear the critical pick, they need both supports gone, but they need to follow through because it's just traded out for 2. Lemity's gonna have to deal with the nano boost, only thing keeping them alive and pumping right now. But thankfully, they got Hydra to close it out. Only 1 player remaining on the field. It's a Winston who doesn't have the sustain to continue. Connecticut find themselves in these final 10 seconds of this fight. Their serious life is on the line if they cannot push this payload past that first checkpoint, and they can hope to get a Dragon Blade up. That's all they can see in the future right now. But Hydra returning with the pulse pump could set that hold to an end. They're losing players one by one. Tennessee, they're confident. They're pulling everything out. Especially that Angry Monkey, great at the zoning. You got Nels in, you got 2 of their own very close to that Dragon Blade, but they're not on the payload, and Tennessee are gonna take this map in a 3-1 fashion.
Not the cleanest series from Tennessee, but I think that final map was them at their best. That is how dominant this team can be on the defensive side. Duckstar, player of the game, maybe player of this series, especially when they were playing well. A lot of it was to them getting that dynamite in. The soldier in play was just so clean from them as well. So UTK 13-1 on the season through 14 weeks. They got 2 weeks to go to try and keep it up to 15-1. Obviously, we'll see them in 2 weeks' time against Delaware. That'll be a great game. But for UConn, again, it's close, but you can't close it out. It seems to be their story of the season. They're at least able to get a map here against a team I don't think many teams thought they were going to be able to steal away, but honestly, their playoff chances more and more are just falling into, hey, we need to run it in the conference championships, because if you're basing it off of the last 4 seeds remaining, you may have a rough time.
It's looking a little rough for UConn. As you said in the very beginning of the series, they're either on or they're not. Today, I think they were on for the majority of the series, for sure. I mean, not many teams can take Tennessee to the lengths that they did, but as we saw in these last 2 maps, it slowly started to become more apparent that Tennessee had much more consistency in what they were doing, how they were playing it out, and that isn't to say that taking this forward, like, hey, you took a map off the #1 team. That's something to celebrate. If anything, take that to mind. But also, Tennessee, we mentioned that we were playing Delaware from earlier, who actually is the only team who has managed to beat them previously. So we got some exciting questions to ask, and thankfully we get to ask them to Hydra, who will be coming in for an interview. So don't go anywhere. We got Hydra coming on live in just a few minutes. And welcome back once again to the EGFC channel. After wrapping up our final match, Tennessee, they took the victory 3-1 in week 14. And Hydra, we have able to bring you into the broadcast today to give us a little insight on how that went. And I think you guys were really pushed to that map, but I want to hear how you're feeling after the finish.
I'm feeling pretty strong. We felt really out of sync on Oasis, but I think we brought it back. We seem to be a lot better at the rush comp, like on University, than we are on the Winston comp. But we cleaned it up. We had a rough Blizzard World. We spent way too much time just sitting wondering what we should do on attack. But then Legacy and I kind of unlocked our synergy on Esperanza, and then I think we found our sweet spot on Winston on that 4th map.
Yeah, it seemed like, I don't know, as you said, it just seemed a little hesitancy from you guys over on Blizzard World. What did you guys say going into map 3? Because obviously map 2, it wasn't your greatest showing. What was the difference maker that made map 3 so great?
We have been having a rough time on Blizzard World in scrims, so we weren't feeling very confident going in anyways. And then after making mistakes, it just kept getting worse and worse. But then on map 3, we said, you know, their comp doesn't really play well on this map. We can bully them. We just got to get more connected. We have to play together, and we can win. And we cleaned it up.
Yeah, that's for sure. And you talked about, you know, you especially with your tanks seem to have a great synergy, whether it be, you know, Legacy or Blamethy. How has the team been, you know, shifting those tanks in and out between maps?
Well, I've been playing with Blamethy for a whole extra semester, so I'm used to how he plays, his tempo, what he likes to do. And I've been putting in a lot of work with Legacy. We've queued some ranked, we've watched VODs together, we've just done a lot to make sure that, you know, the ball tracer, it's the most important duo on the map, besides maybe Briggs in, but we just wanted to make sure that we have a connection that is as strong as we have as a team with Blamethy.
And you know, that practice is really showing to pay off. You guys are now up at a 13-1 record, I believe, which is absolutely crazy to have. And you know, you're facing off against the team right below you. You Delaware also only have dropped 1 map, and actually they're the one team that has been able to beat you in the past. How are you guys preparing for that upcoming series?
I think we're just hoping that we can continue playing as well as we are. I don't remember what the map pool is for next week, but hopefully we get some rush maps in there. We feel really strong on that comp. But this weekend and before Thursday next week, we're just gonna keep pounding on the ball comp and looking at matchups. What can we do? How can we play better? And how can we make sure that we win against you, Delaware?
And there you have it. It's keeping up the practice, keeping up that grind, and you Tennessee, they're working themselves up to have a great finish to the regular season. And Hydra, thank you so much for joining us here on the EGFC broadcast. It was great to be able to talk to you for a little bit today, and hope that you have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you very much. And you know, Salty, we've had two amazing matches today. I'm so glad that these are the ones that we were able to bring to our stream. We've had a streak of 3 Ls. To see some back and forth here has been amazing.
Yeah, honestly, 2 fantastic matches, and honestly, 2 that we didn't think were going to go at least that close, but I gotta give credit to both teams that even lost tonight. Mass respect to both of them. They played great. I think, honestly, UConn, if they can get, you know, these last 2 games of the season going, it could be something that goes in their favor. And I looked ahead about, you know, the map pool for Tennessee versus Delaware. I'm curious on the comment that Hydra made. Lijiang, Pariso, New Queen Street, Shambali, and Nepal. So there's definitely the openings there on New Queen Street and Lijiang. But on the opposite end, you know, Shambali and Pariso maybe go towards more what Delaware is running. So that should be an incredible series when that actually comes around.
And you know what? We're all looking forward to that one in the 2 weeks. that it will arrive. But for the time being, that is all that we have for you over here on the EGFoverwatch channel. Make sure that you go ahead and follow to stay updated in all collegiate and high school Overwatch action. And Twin Salty, it's been a pleasure to work with you today. Hope we can do more in the future, and make sure we're waiting for our next couple weeks. So you guys have a great rest of your night, and we'll see you next time.